So we managed to activate our TRU and another, within the TRU, we've got a K9 unit, which some tracing capability to works with SAPS, the tracing unit there at SAPS. So they're working together.
Lastly, Zambia's former First Lady Esther Lungu has been arrested and charged with money laundering and possession of property suspected to be proceeds of crime. It has been reported that ahead of her questioning, the Zambian police deployed officers in full riot gear, sealing off access to the Drug Enforcement Commission offices to control the crowd. Lungu, who denied all charges, was released on police bond. Channel Africa's correspondent in Zambia, Arthur Sikobo, has the details.
So she was arrested on these 2 counts, and she has been released on bond. She is on police bond. So the property in question is worth 4,088,000 kwacha, which is translated to US dollar 148 US dollars. She was arrested by the DC and later released on police bond as they continue with the case and await to take her to court. She is being charged now because by then the husband was in power, and it was probably very difficult for them to pursue some of these matters.
Recapping the top story this hour, former employee of the Enyobeni Tavern, Siphamandla Dali, has told the East London Regional Court sitting in Mdantsane that there were no signs warning that patrons under the age of 18 are not allowed to enter the establishment. Headlines at 3:30 for SFM News. I am Dino Motaung.
And coming up in your sports, the Sawa Proteas beat Bangladesh in 3 days, the SAI F1 Grand Prix at Kyalami in 2027, and plus minus 4,000 tickets left for Saturday's Carling Black Label Knockout Cup quarterfinal encounter between Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns. More details at 3:30.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Bayede!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
The South African government has implemented economic reforms to address challenges in energy, logistics, and the visa regime. The national rail policy is aimed at modernizing the rail sector, and the reduction of water use license backlogs has attracted 24.4 billion rands in investment. The recently gazetted visa system regime will attract critical skills and investment whilst boosting tourism to ignite the economy and enable job creation. These reforms demonstrate considerable progress in transforming South Africa's economy and addressing the binding constraints on growth. Building and transforming the economy. A message brought to you by Government Communications.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, you're not just listening to the National Pulse. What you say and how you engage with us on air, you play a huge role in creating the conversations that truly matter, that has an impact on what we feel about the country. So in many ways, therefore, what I'm saying is you move the National Pulse, you drive it, and you, even when others do it, you internalize what that means for you in terms of the biggest issues every single day that has an impact about what we feel about the nation. And that really is, in essence, the National Pulse. We'll talk about Jacob Zuma, the former president, shortly, because there's a big issue there regarding a ANC National Disciplinary Committee appeals hearing. We'll get to that in just a moment or so, right? Botswana's election, we spoke about it yesterday. There are some significant moves on the way with voting now over, but we'll talk about that. And you should, on the day when we talk about World Cities Day, you should also be aware of the dramatic impact of climate change around the world. I mean, we see evidence of that every day. And I'm just saying that because, this year, for World Cities Day, a day declared by the United Nations, the key focus here is the role of the youth leading and issues around climate and local action for cities. And it does get me think about it. When we say about World Cities Day, what do you think about your city? And maybe if a city is too big for where you live, it could well be your town. It could well be your dorpie. Like maybe give me one word that you would use to describe your city, your town, your dorp, your suburb. But then you must tell me which one it is, okay? So I know exactly what it is you're talking about. So how do you engage with me? You can call in 086 000 2032. You can send us a WhatsApp text or voice note 0614 104 107. And if you're on social media, well, you can tweet it out on the X platform and as well as on Facebook. So starting point with World Cities Day, just one word that you can use to describe your city, your town, your dorp. Let's get going.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
And my name is Ashraf Garda. Wonderful to engage with you. By the way, you can also feel free to engage me on social media, just at Ashraf Garda on all social media platforms. Okay, let's talk about an issue that will certainly move the National Pulse one way or the other, right? So, tomorrow, the ANC and its National Disciplinary Committee of Appeals will be hearing the appeal launched by former President Jacob Zuma, former ANC President Jacob Zuma, in relation to the outcomes of the National Disciplinary Committee process. Now, remember this after Zuma himself was expelled from the ANC in July after he was found guilty of bringing the party into disrepute by, forming and openly campaigning for another political organization at the time that he belonged to the ANC. So, lots to consider in terms of what's going to come out of this National Disciplinary Committee of Appeals conversation from tomorrow. Nkosi Nyembezi is with me, who's a policy and political analyst. Nkosi, appreciate you giving off your time. You're on the National Pulse. Hi.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back again.
Thank you. Right. So, first things first, yes, I've mentioned certain things in the intro, but why is there a need for this appeal? I mean, I take it Jacob Zuma has put forward this appeal, right? What's the plan?
Yes, it is one of the pathways open for somebody in his position who was brought before a disciplinary committee to answer charges as you have outlined, and the outcome of that process was a recommendation for his expulsion, and then it had an option open for him to appeal that within a prescribed time, and that process of appeal is what is underway now.
Okay, so what would you be looking for in this appeal process now?
I guess he's looking for a reversal of the decision to expel him from the ANC because the reasons that he states as in answer to the charges that he violated the Constitution are reasons that are political, to say he still believes in the ANC, he wants to rescue the ANC. The ANC does not resemble what he used to know as its leader, as its president, and so on. Now, there is an issue about surrounding Jacob Zuma's departure from the ANC, in the sense that he endorsed MK Party. He did not campaign for the ANC. He campaigned for the MK Party. The issue is that the outcome of the election indicated that there was a groundswell of support by ordinary South African voters for the MK Party for various reasons, some of which might be contained in the complaint that he has against the ANC. So this is something which the ANC has to take into account in processing this appeal, because even after the elections, where the ANC, this MK Party is now the majority party, the opposition, official opposition in the National Assembly, and it's got significant vote in provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, and there are a number of people who have left the ANC and other parties to join MK Party, which suggests that this is an ongoing story that the ANC must still face. It's not something that can just be dismissed as a Zuma issue.
So are you saying, if I hear you correctly, that by the letter of the law, the purpose is about appealing, and you appeal when you feel you've been unjustly treated, but this is not about former President Jacob Zuma trying to prove to us that he's not guilty, but it's about gaining other avenues of political mileage, and this presents that platform?
It's both. In proving that he is not guilty for what he is charged, he is putting the circumstances that have led to his decision, to his actions, and he indirectly says that I am not alone in these sentiments. Look at what has happened in terms of the electorate, in terms of some leaders leaving the party, and also making inferences that there are still some in the ANC who feel that they are being persecuted, that who feel that the ANC is no longer what it used to be, and therefore a course of action must be taken from within the ANC. Otherwise, this disintegration is going to continue, and otherwise he will still continue to hold onto the identity of the INC, the propriety. You'll understand the name MK Party. They went to court over that. The issue about visiting the graves of the ANC stalwarts and so on, because all what he's doing, he's walking the path that is overlapping that of the ANC. So it looks like this is not something that is going to go away. You will also remember that the ANC is going for its National General Council. So it could be that on the path to there will be some structures who challenge Ramaphosa's leadership, who raise the issues that Jacob Zuma is raising from within the ANC. And so all of those hints suggest that the ANC must tread carefully in processing this appeal.
Well, interesting you use the word tread carefully. So how does an appeals or disciplinary committee tread carefully in dealing with an appeal of a high-profile person? Do they stick with the letter of the law and the way they interpret it, or do they consider who they're dealing with?
They must consider who they are dealing with and what they are dealing with, because it's bigger than just Jacob Zuma, and it's got practical, imminent ramifications for the ANC, especially to the extent that this also affects other political parties that break away from the ANC, including the EFF, because we are seeing members moving from those parties to strengthen the ANC. So the point in case now is that you will have seen the Willis Mchunu in KZN, the former premier, joining the ANC together with others. You will have seen Floyd Sibambo from the EFF and others leaving their parties to join the MK Party. All of this suggests that the opposition against the ANC is swelling. And so if those individuals can activate their activism to fight for electoral support, that will be something of a challenge for the ANC, including the fact that since May 29, we've had by-elections in different provinces, and this MK Party is emerging as either the second, the third, or the fourth biggest in those municipalities, which confirms a presence that was unknown or that was not there before.
So what then, all things considered, and you said many, many things in Nkosi, what do you think is the end goal to this?
First of all, they will have to deal with it procedurally because the MK party has declared that Zuma, will ask through his representative, Tony Yengeni, for the hearing to be physical instead of it being virtual. So they will have to consider that on the basis of fairness and see if they can face this man face to face to deal with this and open up that process to the public so that the charges, they can see that they are being processed in a fair manner. That is number one, because the perception in the eyes of the public is very important. And then secondly, whatever issues and defense that he's putting forward in support of his appeal, they will have to be weighed carefully so that a reasoned decision can come up that does not leave some bad taste or suspicions that some issues were predetermined or there was biasness, because any of that taint is going to negatively affect the ANC as it goes for elections, as it goes for elections internally in terms of its conference and externally in terms of by-election and ultimately the local government elections in 2020.
And maybe, and just the last thing, looking forward, and I know we're talking about Jacob Zuma and a disciplinary hearing, but by the nature of it, it can't just be about him, right? Do you foresee that real politics takes over as opposed to the letter of the law or discipline within a party? And do you foresee, because in the context of the issues around the GNU and what we talk about the bickering within the GNU, that the ANC and the MK may actually bury their own hatchet and collaborate far sooner than we expect? Do you see that happening or not?
Anything is possible in South Africa. I am in the way you phrase your question. You see, this is a political dispute that is adjudicated in terms of the ANC constitution legally. So that element of politics in this will remain, and it will feature strongly because it is a political solution, a political consideration that must prevail in the legally adjudicated process as guided by the ANC constitution. And I do think that because there are many provinces, many branches and regions, and even within the ANC, there are those who do not support the government of national unity, there might be no one-size-fits-all in terms of satisfying the outcome.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But it must be an outcome that at least satisfies the majority of those affected.
And that's where we're going to leave it in Nkosi Nyembezi, policy and political analyst. There you are, political solution. Perhaps that's why Zuma was expelled after the election. Remember that?
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
16 teams of Mzansi Africa's Elite League are back to the battlefield. Namanda Masha. They all believe Okutukusoba right, Kube bright, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fagukesi. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ipola Mzansi. The Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Get ready for the biggest night in South African music. Tune in to SABC1 on the 2nd of November at 8 p.m. for the 30th South African Music Awards, celebrating our finest local talent. Catch the yellow carpet action from 6 p.m. and join us as we honor the legends and voices that shape our sound. For more info, visit samusicawards.co.za. Hashtag Less Noise, More Music. Hashtag Summer 30 in partnership with the SABC.
What a day. Time for that face mask. Leave the face mask on for 2 minutes. 2 minutes? That's not even enough time for it to work. I can't even send an email in 2 minutes or make a cup of coffee.
With Santam, 2 minutes is enough to insure your car online. When you're fully protected with the expert insurer, you're free to live in the moment, not in the worry. Santam. This is freedom. Santam. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, it's Global Watch. Now, by the way, people are commenting about the one word that describes their city, their town, their suburb, or their dorpie, or their village, whatever it is. I absolutely want to know. Oh, it's 6002032 and WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. So, Global Watch, let's talk about Botswana once again. Yesterday, we were previewing Botswana's election. So, where are we now? As we get to a position, we'll be waiting for imminent announcement, as in tomorrow, right? Kabo Ramasia is a senior reporter based in Botswana. Kabo, good chatting to you as always. Thanks for your time.
Good afternoon, man, and let me take this chance to greet your listener.
Thank you.
I think without wasting any further time, let me just get straight into the update. Yesterday, Botswana headed to the polls to usher in the 13th cycle of parliament. So I think it started off at 6:30 in the morning until 7:30. The process, as we articulated yesterday, went on quite smoothly. I think across various polling stations around the country. Only a few hiccups noted here and there. But with regards to the counting of the ballots, which began in earnest last night across different polling areas. What we see right now is a situation whereby I think in most council constituencies or council wards, which is the local government elections, the opposition has really set itself ahead. The opposition here, I mean, the umbrella for democratic change. And in a few instances, we have got here and there the Botswana Congress Party and the Botswana Patriotic Front, garnering a few seats here and there. But the BDP has really not, to this end, won so many in terms of the council. Regarding the parliament constituencies, I think the same story can be told to the effect that where we are right now, I think just about 2 of the constituencies have been confirmed as having been won by the opposition. One went to the umbrella for democratic change, and the other one so far has gone to the Botswana Congress Party. That is the latest that I had seen before we had this interview. And also with regards to the other several constituencies where counting continues, the opposition parties, according to the statistics that is coming from those polling areas, are leading in the better part of those constituencies.
All right. Are you saying, if I understand you correctly, you're saying when it comes to the local election, the local council election, that the umbrella for democratic change, which is in effect the opposition, are doing very, very well. But when it comes to the national election that votes in government, it is a case of as you were, with the Botswana Democratic Party all set to hold on to power once again, as they have throughout Botswana's democracy. If that's the case, why would that be the case? I mean, is that an anomaly in that sense?
No, I think maybe you didn't quite hear me well. I said that regarding the local government elections, the umbrella for democratic change has done quite well, followed by the BCP and the BPF, with the BDP, coming last in my assessment. Also, regarding the parliamentary constituencies, similarly, it is the same thing that the opposition, being the umbrella for democratic change, as counting continues, is leading in most of the constituencies which are yet to be confirmed. Is leading, but for constituencies that have been confirmed, one has gone to the UDC and the other one has gone to the BCP. We are yet to have parliamentary seat that has been confirmed as having gone to the BDP. So I'm saying that it could be that, or it may be that by the time counting is done, if things go according to the way they are going right now, it could be that maybe the opposition has garnered more seats than the BDP, unless a miracle happens and the BDP comes from behind.
Okay, that's interesting because, you're saying a miracle happens because normally it would be a case of, incumbent party holds on to power. That's clearly what's happened in South Africa. Of course, the ANC lost its majority, but they're still in power in terms of a power sharing agreement. It's happened in Mozambique as well. If you're saying what I hear you saying, then we could be set for a dramatic change in Botswana. Are other experts who analyze political trends, are they making that call as well?
I think most experts have really, prior to these elections, they stated that the elections were too close to call, given whatever dynamics that they were putting in place. They were saying that it was not going to be an outright majority for the BDP. And also, I think now that the opposition seems to be doing well in the so far, I think maybe if things end the way they are, we could be destined maybe for a dramatic end to these elections, which we have never really experienced before. Because it's quite surprising that even on social media is abuzz with posts whereby people are already sort of celebrating and anticipating that we might be headed for a new government.
Okay.
But from the end of the BDP, I think there hasn't been really nothing much that is coming from that end. But like I say,
let's leave it at that. Okay, Cabo, let's leave it at that. Well, we'll see what happens in terms of actual change if and when it happens. That could be quite dramatic. Cabo Ramasia was a senior reporter based in Botswana, suggesting that some of the early results that the opposition parties, and that as opposed to the incumbent, the Botswana Democratic Party, they are the leaders, but the opposition parties, led by the Umbrella for Democratic Change, the UDC, are faring pretty well. What does that mean? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Daneo Matau.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. A very good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 3:30. Four more accused in the fraud case involving diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg have been granted bail of between 5 and 20,000 rands each in the Bronkhorstspruit Magistrates Court east of Pretoria. In more court news, former employee of the Enyobeni Tavern, Siphamandla Dali, has told the East London Regional Court sitting in Mdantsane that there was no signs warning that patrons under the age of 18 are not allowed to enter the establishment, and China has expressed concern that North Korea test-fired one of its most powerful ballistic missiles yet. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the R59 northbound in Randval has a crime scene reported between Randval Road and the R550 Heidelberg Road. The road's been closed off. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview is slow moving on the ramp to the N12 east at Gululis Interchange, and Jan Smuts Drive northbound in Dunkeld West queuing towards North Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle just before Spaghetti Junction. The R102 is slow-moving near Mount Moriah Drive, and Umgeni Road westbound slow-moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow-moving towards Okavango Road exit. The M5 southbound is queuing towards Krombum Road exit, and the N7 southbound in Milnerton slow-moving approaching Bosmanstam Road due to roadworks. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
All right, Chumia, what are we going to talk about today?
We're talking all things cricket. Good news in terms of the Proteas who beat Bangladesh by an innings and 273 runs in under 3 days in the second test today. It's South Africa's biggest innings win ever in test cricket, and it saw them secure a superb 2-0 clean sweep of the series, while it also is their third straight test win. Now, the Proteas posted a massive 575 for 6 in the first first innings, then bowled out Bangladesh for 159, and then South Africa immediately triggered the follow-on, and another top bowling effort led by the spinners saw Bangladesh all out for 143 in their second innings just before the close of play. So a big congratulations to South Africa. Meanwhile, white ball head coach Rob Walter has named a strong 16-player squad for the upcoming 4-match Wonder Cement T20 International Series against India. It's scheduled from the 8th to the 15th of November. Hendrik Klaassen, David Miller, alongside with Keshav Maharaj, they return to the Proteas T20 side for the first international series of the home summer. Gerald Coetzee and Marco Jansen have also been included in the squad after completing their structure conditioning blocks. And then Western Province all-rounder Mihlali Mpongwana has received a maiden call-up, and he's joined by uncapped Dolphins all-rounder Andile Simelane, who was part of the squad that toured the United Arab Emirates in September. Then moving from one good news to the next in motorsport, if all goes well, South Africa may soon witness the revival of Formula One racing at the iconic Kyalami Grand Prix circuit in 2027. Now, Kyalami's management have agreed to partner with motorsport consultancy Apex Circuit Design to chart a course towards FIA Grade 1 accreditation. And these upgrades include extended runoff areas at 3 critical corners of the track, along with enhancement to the AMCO barriers to meet the F1 safety standards. And in terms of these safety adjustments, is estimated to cost up to 177 million rand. And even if Kyalami is not selected for the 2027 calendar, these upgrades will definitely elevate the circuit's status on the international motorsport stage, which could further open up new opportunities, which is absolutely great. And I was just looking at X, how Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, is literally excited, and he's just like, we're waiting for it. Obviously, it's not confirmed that the race is going to be hosted in South Africa in 2027. But for me, just seeing something like this, it speaks to the Minister of Sports. We've had ministers of sports, but I don't think we've seen a minister doing so much work, because I feel like it's not about the talks, it's about the action that's done. And since Gayton has been there, we've seen some of the things that he has done. And I feel like we've seen a lot of ministers just going to funerals, somehow coming up with statues and stuff. But what other work have they done?
You may have to call him honourable soon at this rate. I'm looking at Gayton McKenzie. So do you agree we should have a Formula One?
Yes, why not?
I must say, I think I've got my facts right. The last Formula One race we had in this country was in 1993.
Yeah.
Now, what's terrible about that? That was in apartheid South Africa.
Yeah.
I cannot understand, with all, the Madiba magic and all that came after that in that first 10 years, that we were never able to convince. We had the Rugby World Cup, Cricket World Cup, Football World Cup 2010. We couldn't get a Formula One race in this country.
Perhaps it was not their priority.
Well, then somebody, because it's for example, I could never pronounce Azerbaijan until they hosted the Formula One Grand Prix. Now I know where it is. I know where Baku is, only because of the global impact of these countries that host Formula One. It's not my favorite sport, but it's huge.
Yeah, the economy and the benefits that comes with it also. You're just going to see how big it is. But we're just hopeful that the race will be hosted in South Africa in 2027.
And to your point about Gayton McKenzie, I mean, are you saying that he is a fixer? It comes across that he's a fixer. He gets things done.
It seems like it. I'm just saying, we've heard a lot of ministers saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And for me, what is very important is always when a minister considers grassroots sports, and that is like number one on his list. When that happens, I'll be very happy.
Okay, there we are. So, we'll have anything more you want to say? No.
Lastly,
all right, go ahead.
In terms of Netball South Africa Chief Executive Officer Mudiri Komane will soon learn if her role as the CEO will continue, as her contract officially expired today. Now, Komane, who succeeded Blanche de la Guerre after a decade in the position, was initially appointed on a 1-year contract in October 2023. Now, with her term concluded, NSA President Cecilia Molokwane has confirmed that Komane's contract has ended and that discussions on her potential renewal will take place soon. And here's Molokwane just explaining the process.
Renewing your contract, obviously, you have to know that you have to call a person in, and then you you do the appraisal of the person of what they've done through the year and what has been achieved and what has not been achieved. And then you go from then, you do the contract. And then after that, new CEO, if you have to appoint, you obviously have to go and advertise. If we are not advertising, we'll have to appoint somebody within Netball South Africa to act until the position is filled.
And lastly, in football, around 4,000 tickets left for Saturday's Carling Black Label Knockout Cup quarterfinal between Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns. And this will be the second time these sides meet this season, with the Brazilians claiming a 2-1 win a month ago. Around 78,000 tickets were up for grabs. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Okay, perfect. Looking forward to that. So here's the question to you. Do you think South Africa should be hosting a Formula One Grand Prix? I don't have the maths with me. I don't have the numbers. I do know it costs an absolute fortune. And then to get on the roster is another whole lobbying process. But do you think there's greater benefit for the country and they would be profitable to be hosting a Formula One Grand Prix? In this case, it's Johannesburg. There was a bid for Cape Town a few years ago. Remember that? We have an existing Grand Prix track called Kyalami. Yes, no, and perhaps we'll talk about the ministers that you think are performing as well. All of that coming up. WhatsApp 0614 104 107. Text or voice notes, or to call in 086 000 2032. Well, question is, I've got my fingers on the pulse. To you.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Awesome Friday! VS Gaming Weekly is back on your screen, bigger and better with more exhilaration. Draw near as we shine a spotlight on the world of gaming to bring you everything from gaming news, the latest tech, tournaments, players' profiles, and celebrity interviews. Get the latest in gaming news and trends, as well as tips and tricks from some of South Africa's favorite pro gamers. Witness Telkom VS Gaming Weekly every Friday at 2 p.m. on SABC1, with repeats every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on SABC2. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, we spoke about World Cities Days and the issues of the focus on climate. We'll talk about climate change in the country as well just now with Dr. Dion George coming up. But there's a call who wants to talk about F1. Temba in Gqeberha. Hi, Temba. Temba, do I have you there?
Yes. Look, Ashraf, man, I listened to you and your colleague, Formula One, stating that Formula One has never been held in South Africa during the democratic period or phase. And I want to say to you guys, we've had it during the democratic dispensation. That consortium was led by Tokyo Sekhwale. We've had it in Cape Town.
When?
That's
Okay.
the first point. The second point is we've had huge events bigger than the Formula One. The Rugby World Cup, that decision may have been taken in 1993, but it was led by SASCOC and the National Sport Coordinating Committee and SARU in South Africa at the time. So that was the biggest. The second one was the World Cup itself again following that. So ministers after ministers, at least they have delivered in working hard for the country, in putting the country into the global stage.
Okay, Themba, I'm going to get Tumi to respond, but let me just talk about what the one part of it, okay? Not the Formula One part of it. I actually said, I said, we've had the Rugby World Cup, we've had the Cricket World Cup, we've had the Football World Cup. It really upsets me we've not been able to have a Formula One race in a democratic South Africa. I stand to be corrected. And in doing so, obviously it meant different people have done different work. Tumi then spoke about the ministers of sport as she sees them. But she can respond to that, and she can respond to your point about we've had a Formula One race in democratic South Africa. So go ahead, Tumi, you go ahead.
I think from my side, I stand to be corrected. F1, really, the last time it was in South Africa was back in 1993. In terms of what you're talking about, I think you're talking about the A1 Grand Prix of Nations, which is completely different from the F1. So F1 has never been hosted in South Africa since 1993. It's a fact. You can even look for it anywhere on the internet.
Exactly.
But yeah, I wanted to also say that Ashraf mentioned the other events that have been hosted in the country. All I'm saying with regards to the ministers is that, listen, I'm not saying that the other ministers did not deliver at all. However, I feel like with what Gayton is doing right now, within a short space of time, there's a lot that he's achieved or that he's achieving.
Okay, right, got that. Themba, so just to add on to the A1, the A1 is a franchise at a lower level than the Formula One, and Tokyo Sekwali had a stake for South Africa in the A1, and I think we had a South African Swiss driver, Adrian Zarts, maybe, I think that's the name, who drove, but that's not the Formula One. So in simple terms, we're talking about Champions League and Europa League. If you get my point, there's a big difference between the two. Perfect. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate it, Themba. Really love to engage with you, which is great. Okay, we have perfect. Thanks for that, Tumi. Right. Well, here's the question to you: a Formula One race, would you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? I can tell you now, and interesting I say so, because on the one hand I've said we've had Cricket World Cup, Rugby World Cup, Football World Cup, but I've also said that with hindsight, whether the 2010 World Cup did enough for the country, and I love my football, I don't know. So the question I'm also saying, even to a Formula One race, it has to make business sense. It has to, for all sectors of society, for us to be able to host it, isn't it? And part of that would be having solid transport. And I say that deliberately so, because we're going to talk about transport in a moment.
Whatever your need for a personal loan, choose a bank that's best for your loans. Nedbank offers loans of up to 400,000 Rand at the best possible fixed interest rates. And there's more. Open a MyGoals Plus or MyGoals Premium account, and you could enjoy 200 Rand cash back every month for the duration of your loan term. That's up to 14,400 Rand cash back. Visit nedbank.co.za to apply for your tailored personal loan. See money differently. Nedbank. We are a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
16 teams of Mzansi Africa's Elite League are back to the battlefield. Ngamandla Masha. They all believe ukuthi kuzoba right, kube bright, as they navigate the path to the final. This is the second edition of the Carlin Knockout Cup. Fakugesi. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ibola laseMzansi. The Carlin Knockout Cup, live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices are making our kids sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, leading to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they get older. We need to protect our kids from all sugary drinks. Demand a stronger health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
I'm reading a tweet from the political or a political economist, and that certainly got me thinking. I'll comment about that just now. Let's talk about rail. So if I said we need to be hosting a Formula One race, we need to get our transport in place, absolutely. And for this sense, I mean, you've probably experienced it. I certainly know where I live in Johannesburg. There are some significant railway lines that I've seen over the years. Well, the one that I would pass often is the one in Nuclear, west of Johannesburg. It doesn't exist, or so I think. It doesn't. And anybody else will tell you, not just the lines are gone, but the actual stations are gone. And when you lose, railway lines and stations, you lose a vital part of commuting people, and therefore it really impacts on the productivity of a country. I understand, and we've been talking about it, that there's been some real attempts to turn that around. So let's effectively get a scoreboard in terms of our railway lines and what's the position in the state of play regarding just that. We talk about, let's talk to the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, that's PRASA. They have, they're certainly making the effort now to revive our railway lines. Andizwa Makanda is the PRASA spokesperson. Andizwa, I appreciate you connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So maybe let me start with this, right? In terms of the percentage of railway lines that were, let's call it, broken down in disuse before, what was the highest percentage in disuse and where are we now?
If we could put in percentage forms, we're looking at around 92%. When COVID hit and when all the lines were distracted, we were sitting at 40 of the 40 corridors that we operate. But now that we are recovering, we are sitting at almost 80% that have been recovered. That is 31 of the 40 corridors. So a lot of work has happened in the past 2 to 3 years in ensuring that we restore the passenger rail services that were decimated during the COVID-19 lockdown.
Okay, so you're saying, in fact, during COVID, there was a period where 92% of our railway services were not in use. Was it all linked to COVID, or was it linked to disuse and abandonment and neglect and a whole lot of other factors?
I think we're speaking around the devastation because of the COVID-19 lockdown, the theft and vandalism that the railway infrastructure suffered at the time during the lockdown. Obviously, prior to that, there was some lines that were deteriorating due to lack of maintenance. But in terms of the total shutdown because of the theft and vandalism that brought the rail network down on its knees, we're looking at around 92%.
Okay, so what has happened since? I mean, you talk about a turnaround, okay? So where are we at now? And perhaps let me give you a chance to list some of the achievements in terms of regained tracks here.
Definitely, Ashraf. You know that we adopted a strategy to recover and restore the rail infrastructure corridor by corridor, because to simply fix all the lines at the same time was just not feasible. It was not practical. So we adopted a corridor by corridor approach, looking at firstly at which ones were least vandalized with the high passenger volumes that we can quickly turn around where there's a high demand. And so the work started around 2021-2022 financial year, bringing back the Mabopane line first in January 2022, and that's because of the high volume of passengers and the demand in that line. And also we looked at stations, because for people to access the services, you need the station stations. And a lot of the stations, over 80% of the stations, were completely vandalized. And so we looked at the quick wins. Which of the stations can we quickly turn around so that the line is operational, so that people can access the services? And that was the strategy that we approached. And to date, 31 of the 40 corridors have been recovered. If you're looking at the stations which allow people to access the service, we're looking at around 266 of the 463 stations that PRASA operates that have been brought back to basic functionality so that people can start accessing the rail services. And to say, Ashraf, there's a lot of work that needs to happen in all the lines that we have recovered. Not all stations are accessible because of the extent of the vandalism, and that's the work that we need to do in that. In the 31 recovered lines, there are stations that we also need to bring back. And you do get the agitation from the affected communities. When are we getting the lines back in our communities? And that's because of this phased approach that we've adopted. And so we're looking also at budget constraints, looking at what can we reprioritize to get back online, to restore the services.
Well, it's a big issue. I mean, we again, here's an example of, if you talk of vandalism, so once again, crime rears its ugly head. It's not just often in loss of life, but, effectively completely killing off, railway stations and therefore the entire railway line. Right now, and we've been discussing it, it's critically important. I know on my recent trips to London, to Montreal and to New York, to Toronto, the lifeblood of a city is public transport, and there's a certain buzz that a city loses when we don't have that. So we're not talking about one big city, we're talking about the entire country, right? I mean, what therefore the damage to our railway lines, do you agree it is not just devastated the economy, but it's had a major impact on the morale of the country to a large degree, especially with commuters who use trains every single day?
Most certainly, that is the correct observation, in that what we are also trying to do is to ensure that we restore passenger rail services as the backbone of public transport, complementing other modes of transport, with be it your buses and your taxis, and the cities that you cite and more. Rail is is normalized. It's the culture of a city. It should be something that is definitely the way of life, the way that we commute, and that is what we're trying to do, is to restore passenger rail services as the backbone of public transport. And remember, it's also the most affordable mode of transport in all the different modes of transport that we have.
It certainly is, yeah. Well, here's the thing. So, I mean, the numbers say that you've spent 3.4 billion rands, PRASA has spent on Gauteng alone on infrastructure. So obviously the numbers nationwide will be much bigger. So let's say there's a lot more that's going to be spent, and that's fantastic. So at some stage we get all the railway lines back on track. The next question then is, how do we safeguard these tracks and the stations so they don't fall prey to vandalism once again? And how do we ensure that the actual trains are so safe that not just the people come back in their thousands, but you also want to bring in something that we haven't touched on enough, that in South Africa, the middle class, outside of the Gautrain, they're largely absent in using railway transport for many, many reasons.
Certainly, and I think that's the question that everyone is asking. How do we make sure that we safeguard the infrastructure that we've recovered? And you remember that, as per the context, the reason why the rail network fell to its knees is because of the cancellation of the security contracts at the time, due to reasons that the board then at the time felt that it was critical and urgent to cancel the security contracts. And that just left the rail network up for the taking. And what we are doing is that we've learned from that you cannot cancel security contracts without a contingency plan in place. And what is important is that we need to make sure, as a number one priority, that we have boots on the ground, we have physical presence of security, safeguarding the network. And we're talking here about almost 2,000 kilometers of network that needs to be safeguarded, and therefore we need to increase physical visibility of security, make sure that we've got security personnel, and we've augmenting the process security personnel. We are also working with the private sector to augment the numbers, because it's a huge vast of network that needs to be protected.
Well, I'll tell you what, we look forward to that day. Sorry, do you want to add one further point quickly?
Yes, I wanted to say, for the safety of commuters, we've also increased the visibility at our stations, inside our trains. People are noting the increased security personnel inside our trains. We're working with SAPS, but we're also bringing in technology as the way forward to assist us in protecting the network.
Okay.
Even where the trains are being staged in our yards, we're making sure that the walling comes with technology such as seismic detection technology.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I know if Lorenzo Davids is listening, and I certainly hope you are, Lorenzo, from the Western Cape, where he made a huge effort to popularize the use of commuter trains in the Western Cape for all the people of South Africa, because he made the point, like, it's the one country not enough people are using public transport, and it's just crazy. That has got to change. And Iswa Makanda, thank you for your time, spokesperson for PRAZA. Look forward to the day where everything is just absolutely perfect, and then we'll give a big celebration. Here's a comment about Formula One.
Hi, Ashraf, G from the Western Cape. Thumbs up for me for Formula One. I think there's a huge interest in South Africa in terms of Formula One racing overall. So I will give it a thumbs up. And also, I would think that many of the drivers will be able to say, but we have raced on all the continents, because Africa is the current continent where none of them, the current drivers have actually participated, if you can put it that way. So all thumbs up for that, and it will be a huge financial injection. Thanks.
Okay, there we are. Certainly someone who's going to go to the race, and if it happens, when it happens, it sounds very, very great. Just think about this. The South African Grand Prix, Kyalami. It just sounds wonderful. Let it happen when it happens. Let's get the news now at 4 o'clock. Here's Dineo Matau.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories. 4 more accused in diamond scam granted bail, and China raises concern after North Korea missile test. A very good afternoon. 4 more accused in the fraud case involving diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg have been granted bail of between 5 and 20,000 rands each in the Bronkhorstspruit Magistrates Court east of Pretoria. Husband and wife Johannes and Christelle Badenhorst, Deval Stradom and Nicolese van Heerden are said to be close accomplices of Liebenberg. They face charges of fraud, money laundering, theft and racketeering. The accused allegedly used the proceeds from the diamond investment scheme to purchase movable and immovable assets, including 2 mines and various motor vehicles. Thousands of investors made payments into the scheme amounting to 2.5 billion rand. Last week, 3 accused were released on bail, while Liebenberg is set to apply for bail next week. His wife Desiree's bail application is underway and opposed by the state. In more court news, former employee of the Enyobeni Tavern, Siphamandla Dali, has told the East London Regional Court sitting in Mdantsane that there were no signs warning that patrons under the age of 18 are not allowed to enter the establishment. Dali was an employee at the establishment for about a year, where he worked as a bouncer. The inquest seeks to establish if anyone can be criminally charged for the deaths of the 21 young people who died at the tavern. One of the parents who lost a child at the tavern, Khulekile Nkandana, says it has been an emotional journey for them as parents.
You see that place, it was a death trap for those patrons who were there. Very small, and it was overflowing. But now even in court, the witnesses, there are a couple of things, some of them they agree that are correct, some are not. So we don't know, but we believe that the legal route would take its place.
In Limpopo, the police officer accused in the life insurance-related killings has denied her involvement in the death of her younger sister's mentally challenged child. The body of Jacob Siakamela was found burnt in a dumping site at Makgofe Motong village outside Polokwane a few years ago. The accused, Rachel Kutumela, is accused of killing 9 people for insurance money amounting to 10 million rand. Testifying in chief during her bail application, Kutumela has denied her involvement in the murder after a forensic report indicated the presence of foreign chemicals in the body.
I plead not guilty. And also because of what I heard as the post-mortem results through Damas.
Foreign subjects or foreign bodies in the lungs.
That they told her that they found foreign objects or items in the lungs.
And in other news, the Mpumalanga Economic Regulator has confiscated and destroyed close to 200 illegal gambling machines in Mbombela. Most of the machines were confiscated from spaza shops in the townships. Shop owners were also fined between 1,500 and 2,500 rand. Mpumalanga Economic Regulator spokesperson Cedric Chilwane says unregulated gambling has a serious negative impact on the country's economy.
We are seriously affected in terms of the economy because all gambling activities which are licensed, the government is collecting levies and taxes from that operation. So with these, because it's happening underground, so you are losing already that tax collection. That's the first part. But secondly, you are also creating an illegal market which is competing with what has been regulated.
Lastly, China has expressed concern after North Korea test-fired one of its most powerful ballistic missiles yet. Beijing says peace and stability on the Korean peninsula was in the interest of all parties. South Korea says the test was a reckless provocation. Speaking at a news conference in Seoul, Major General Am Chun-young, who heads the operations at South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, also condemned North Korea's actions.
This launch clearly violates UN Security Council resolutions that prohibit activities related to ballistic missile technology, as well as scientific and technological cooperation. Our military condemns the illegal and reckless provocation of the Kim Jong-un regime and strongly urges the North to suspend its actions that threaten peace and stability on the Korean peninsula.
Recapping the top story this hour, former accused in the fraud case involving diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg have been granted bail of between 5 and 20,000 rands each in the Bronkhorstspruit Magistrates Court east of Pretoria. Headlines at 4:30 for SFM News. I am Dinoma Taung.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Nabi blames the media for raising expectations around Kaizer Chiefs, and Peter Kutzer claimed gold in the men's 200-meter backstroke in Singapore. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in Germiston has delays towards Refinery Road. Jan Smuts Drive northbound in Dunkel West is queuing towards North Road. In Bedford View, the N3 northbound is slow moving on the ramp to the N12 east at Kiluli's interchange, and the N3 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported near Van Buren Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction. The R102 is slow moving near Mount Moriah Drive. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is slow moving through the N1 Kuberg interchange. The N7 Jakes Hanville Drive southbound is queuing towards Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Movango returns for an explosive new season on SABC2. A renaissance of new beginnings, intrigue, and drama with old enemies and new characters. Catch the rebirth season of Mubango every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2 or stream it on SABC Plus. Mubango, ukovela panda. SABC2.
The Reds have an assignment to demonstrate that their fans will never walk alone. But with 3 points in the bag against Brighton and Hove Albion.
And the ball delivered, and here's Jones! And scores! Curtis Jones gets there!
However, the Seagulls want to emphasize that they are in the top half to stay.
Gini Hody's got it across! Goodness me! Danny Welbeck has put Albion into the lead!
This is the Premier League. Catch the thrilling clash between Liverpool FC and Brighton and Hove Albion FC on Saturday 2 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Tell you what, that conversation with Tumi regarding Formula One and Gayton McKenzie has certainly had lots of people responding, and I'll pick up someone saying, Ashraf, tell Tumi to give us facts and figures about exactly what he has achieved in the last few months. Maybe I'll pass it on to her, absolutely. Then I pick up a tweet from Political Econ ZA saying, listening to a hopelessly biased journalist on SFM radio and Ashraf Garda praising Gayton McKenzie based on absolutely nothing but hot air. As I've been saying for a while, it seems like the SABC has been captured again, but by a different set of interests. So I tell you what, is that what you're referring to me about this issue? Because I just want to say this much, and I think it's important we bring it up. In the conversation with Tumi, I don't know who you're talking about here, but I don't recall me saying anything that suggests that I give Gayton McKenzie a thumbs up for all the work he's done. Tumi spoke about his energy and he gets things done, and that I hear that. But at what stage did I come across and say, I praise him? And I just say that because when we talk about being captured, you're actually suggesting something very, very sinister. And I think if you're accusing us of blowing hot air, I tell you what, you're probably doing this. Not you probably, you are, because where are your facts on that issue? Now, having said that, here's an important conversation to have, right? When it comes to the government of national unity, don't worry about those politicians who've been part of the executive or the cabinet before. Talk about the new members of the executive. People like Gayton McKenzie, but not just him only, the others. There could be, a few of them. How do you rate how they've done in the last few months so far? Because remember, they come in completely from a different perspective to what we've been used to, which has been an ANC-run national executive. So how do you rate them, into all of them? And give me names and tell me how do you rate them and why you rate them the way you do. I certainly would love to know, right? And while you think about that, let's talk about this, because we have some interesting developments regarding the EFF. So, Hanki, Impatlele is with me. He's an EFF student command member in Limpopo. Hanki, appreciate your time. You are now connected to the National Pulse.
Greetings, Mr. Ashraf. How are you?
Much appreciated. Right, so I tell you what, we're talking to you because I've been looking at your tweets, okay? So on the one hand, you've been using the X platform or Twitter and tweeting out and accusing Julius Malema, the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, of trying to impose Godrich Gardi as the party's deputy president. You then made the point that branches prefer Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. And then Malema responded to all of that by saying, and this is all on Twitter, people can check it out on the X platform, saying, try me, boys, right? The bottom line to all of that, finally, is a note we've seen from the EFF to say, actually, you've been expelled. So now what?
Now what? One thing for sure is that normally we've just released a public statement, by the way, and when I say we, I mean myself. We just released a public statement, and by the virtue of that, we made it clear that the expulsion was unconstitutional because it came from the EFF Students' Command, which is an organ of the EFF. It does not have powers to expel. It can only convene disciplinary hearings and then recommend an expulsion if they feel they need to expel to the EFF. So the expulsion from the Students' Command is unconstitutional. But since we now saw that the Commander-in-Chief and President of the EFF, Comrade Julius Malema, is kind of the one who is repeating all these things of saying people must even locate us in our branches and make sure that we don't attend the NPA, we see it only on TV. It tells us very well that now we are being targeted, and knowing the kind of barbarians that live in this world, we know that some can mischaracterize his tweets to say we must see this thing on TV to simply saying no, people must hurt us or even kill us, because I've talked to people who told me that my name has been discussed in very, very prominent places, talking about taking my life and stuff like those. So with the expulsion being unconstitutional, I'm not even going to appeal it. I succumb to them not wanting me, because that's what they call defending the movement, even against people who speak the truth. We remain students who are inspired by President O.R. Tambo, who says we must always tell the truth, even if the truth coincides with what the enemy say. So we've been consistent on ideology, we've been consistent on principle. Some have even called us MK Party agents. We told them that we will never insult the MK Party, we will never insult President Zuma. To us, the MK Party, as the EFF, is a ballot enemy, but not a class enemy, unlike members of the government of national unity. So they've called us an MP agent.
All right, so I hear you. So you're saying one is you brought up the unconstitutionality, but you're saying that's by the way, you're not going to appeal it anyway, right? So you've been expelled. So how do you analyze what has just happened between you? You have a significant constituency and the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF. I mean, how do you then analyze this in terms of what's actually happened, and where does one go forward with this for yourself, and what does it say about the EFF and its leader?
You don't want to go around it whereby I have to go in and insult the Commander-in-Chief or the EFF, because I'm aware that you are taking me to a direction where I must say he's a dictator or what. The people, if we live in South Africa and we say the people are governed, the people can also see what is in plain sight. To them, they will take, some call it defending the movement, some call it dealing with infiltrators, some call it whatever they call it. But as of a way forward, I think so far we will just wait to be engaged by comrades, because we made it clear in the letter to say we will never abandon the cause of the revolution. And by the virtue of that, we will meet on the other side, or where the revolution is taking place. So we will wait to be engaged by other. We will wait to be engaged by other parties.
Okay, which means what? That you accept the fact in never abandoning the revolution, that you'd have to do this outside the EFF, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, just to go back to the original point as per your tweet, when you had via Twitter or the X platform, accused Malema of trying to impose Godrich Gandhi on as the party's deputy president. I mean, again, I hear what you said earlier. I certainly don't want you to say he's a dictator if he's not. You can say what you want about him and whatever it is you feel, right? But give us a sense, if you can, about the inner workings of how you understand decisions are made within the EFF.
I always speak about the constitution, my brother, because the constitution of the EFF is, and the documents of the EFF are what we joined at first. We never joined an individual. That is why we can even go. We are not even guilty, or we don't even regret going where we went to. We are simply the commander in chief to order. We joined the documents, and our documents tell us about a principle called democratic centralism. So the democratic centralism is to simply say engagements must happen democratically, but whenever they bind, what must happen is that we must all be bound by them. And by the virtue of that, I feel like so far the party is using dictatorship of the dominant faction to impose views and then call them democratic centralism.
Okay. Now you, I mean, as an EFF student command member, you've been in Limpopo, you've been expelled, right? Do I take it that when you talk about, effectively fighting the revolution in different places now, that you're not just talking about yourself now? There would be a constituency that would go with you.
Yeah, I know. Another thing that I also don't want this interview to be mischaracterized as is that it's more like you are saying I will now be, I will be responsible for a mass exodus that will be going on in the EFF. So I don't want that. And I saw before everything else you spoke about Gayton McKenzie and other things. I don't want to respond. They will, if there is a mass exodus, things will happen. But so far, one thing for a fact, comrades who are leading the party in respective structures, they have called to say, Mkhaga, we saw the injustice, and what we can tell you is that we are with you. And by the virtue of that, others are simply saying, we are resigning our memberships. Others are simply saying, we are living with you, this and that. But I don't want this interview to be mischaracterized as the guy who's responsible for a mass exodus.
Well, fair. I most appreciate it. I mean, you're saying it as it is, and we certainly can't misconstrue anything. But you did say some people are saying, hey, you know what, we'll resign too. We'll see what happens, right? Is there any final point that you would like to share with us on this platform in the light of what's happened?
So far, what I can say is that I just don't have words, my brother, man. I'm defeated because, we believed in the EFF. I'm defeated. We believed in the EFF. I mean, we believed in those documents. And if decisions can be taken like that we are just, we're just not fine with that because we were introduced, EFF is the only political home we know, and we were introduced to politics by the EFF and other factors. At some point, we thought we are part of comrades who are doing what is necessary, fighting for in the right platforms. But if things are happening like this, we're just ready. And because me avoiding to say a lot of things is that I just don't want to have comrades targeting me, man. I just feel threatened at the level of personal security, honestly speaking.
All right. I absolutely understand that. Well, I think you've been very open and we really appreciate you saying what you're saying. And I think maybe that last part resonates with many people, not just regarding the EFF, but, people have problems with organizations they're part of. And when you're saying, I'm defeated, I mean, we hear you. We hear you saying, I'm defeated. So thank you for your time, and you've been pretty open about this. Hanki Mpatlele, the EFF student command member from Limpopo, who's now been expelled by the party, effectively the hand of Julius Malema. If you go back to the tweets and the spats they've had in the last couple of days, well, as a result of that, he's been expelled and he's not going to fight that expulsion. What do you make of that? What do you make of the EFF right now? Let's hear it. This is the National Pulse, and you have your fingers on the pulse too.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Bayede!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom. This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
Sanibonani babukela emakhaya, igama lami nginguSisi. Make sure that you catch us on the 2nd of November, celebrating 30 years of summer music at 8:30 p.m. only on SABC1.
Celebrate 30 years of music with the Summer Awards, Saturday 2 November. Yellow carpet starts at 7:30 p.m. and the main awards at 8 p.m. on SABC1.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I'm going to play some of your voice notes as soon as I can and take some of the calls. Here's one. Let me just see. I mean, this is so interesting because we were speaking about PRASA. And have you been in a situation where your railway, not just the line, the station was like stolen? You woke up one morning and the station was not there anymore. My daughter's saying the railways were the biggest employer in the country. What I failed to hear from your guest is the accidents, or I'm not too sure what that word is, who were basically people who were never arrested, mostly in the Western Cape. And maybe that broader question I've asked, especially members of the new executive as part of the GNU, who do you think has performed well? And I'm talking about not incumbent ANC members, the others, okay, who are now in new positions. Who do you think has performed well? Who has not performed well? And feel free to comment on my conversation with Hanki Impatlele, now former EFF student command member since he's been expelled. Lots of people wanting to comment as well about Formula 1 2. Right. Okay, and we'll chat to Dion George coming up after 5 on the issues of the environment and just what an important issue it is. But in the meantime, let's talk about another big issue. The 7th person, and it's a horrific story, you know that, the 7th person to be arrested in connection with the Lutsikisiki mass shooting that's in Mzukizi in Damazi is a convicted killer currently serving a life sentence. Now, the accused appeared in court today. The SABC News reporter Nkululeko Nyembezi joins me on the line. Good chatting to you as always in Nkululeko. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ashraf and SFM listeners.
All right, I would suggest another tragic, sad but dramatic day in court.
It was indeed, because no one expected this high-profile criminal, I can put that way, because the villagers in Gobozane and Lusigi as a whole have been calling on for the police to come up with the one who is a mastermind in the shooting of 18 people that were gunned down 3 weeks ago at Gobozane village while they were having a ceremony there. But today, this man came he was chained, he was handcuffed, he was escorted by security guard, heavily armed security guard and police. Then as he was led towards the courtroom, he absolutely showed no remorse. He was just looking around, looked at the presiding officer up until he was told to stand still in the courtroom. So this was very, very, very dramatic indeed, Ashraf.
And in that drama, what then was the mood of the people, and what sort of direction then did that entire case take after that?
Well, after that, the presiding officer just read the case, the charges, 18 charges against him. He was the presiding officer just mentioned all the names that were gunned down on that particular day, and then this guy was looking at the magistrate attentively and listening to each and every word that the magistrate was saying. Then people on the gallery were also staring at him because really it was shocking. But for some, because some of them, they knew that this is the guy who's supposed to be behind the brutal killing of 18 people at this particular village. So after these names were read out and then the charges were read out to him, and then he stood up and then said, no, magistrate, I will take the third option of what you are saying, because the magistrate read out his constitutional right to get a legal aid representative, or maybe to speak on his defense. And then he decided to say, no, I'm going to stand on my own. I'm going to speak on my own throughout the proceeding of the trial. Then this was very shocking, because even the people of the gallery were shocked about what this man was saying. And then so when he was also asked if maybe he would apply for bail, he said, no, there is no need to apply for bail because I'm serving a life sentence and 15 years in a CIMAX prison in Gokstead. You remember that Bongweni CIMAX prison is one of the. It's a correctional facility that is for those hardened criminals. So this was dramatic indeed.
So help us understand this as a final point. So if he should be serving a life sentence, then what was he doing there at that time? How could that have been?
Well, according to the investigation and information that you are getting from the police and from the investigating officers, that this man orchestrated the brutal killing of these 18 people, is the one who planned everything, because some of them, it's just allegation, some of them were saying that he was about to be released on parole. It was only 3 months now to be released on parole, and then he decided, allegedly, to hire people who are outside to clear the territory, because it's something that has to do with drug dealings in the village. That's just allegations. But according to the information that you are receiving, is that these allegations must be true, because this guy has been in the village and then has been alleged of using drugs in the area and stuff. So he is alleged of orchestrating the whole mass shooting.
So he wasn't outside the prison doing all of this, orchestrating it, managing affairs from within his prison office, if I can call it that, right?
Yes, from the prison. He was doing everything while he was in prison.
Okay, and I'm saying prison office because obviously it's big business in this case here. Well, I'll tell you what, thank you for talking to us, Ntuleko Niembezi, the SABC News reporter. There you are, confirmation now that the seventh person arrested, Mzukizi Ndamazi, was in jail, 3 months away from getting from being out on parole, and he's a convicted killer, currently serving a life sentence, and he masterminded this entire proceeding. And that's the allegations, but he was quite cool about no need for bail. I'm currently in prison anyway. Goodness, man, we live in a traumatic world. There's no question about that, right? Let's just touch on this about before we get to the news about Gayton McKenzie.
Hi, Ashraf and Tumi. This is Lukanyo from Kabeja. I'm not quite sure why Tumi is making the assertion that Minister Gayton McKenzie is the best performing minister, or is the minister that has done the most for the sport. Surely that is not. It's just her own opinion, and it's not based on facts. So there's so many other ministers that have done so much more than what Minister Gayton McKenzie has done. Not taking anything away from what he has done, but what we see on social media vis-a-vis all the other, when you're saying previous sports ministers, we need to be factual about what we are saying.
Well, I think it's a point well taken, and others have said, Tumi, please give us a list of what has Gayton McKenzie actually achieved. So, Tumi, you're going to come up just now. Maybe we'll give you some time to list it down. But I will also say this much, right? And I hear you, and I think it's an important point. I will say this much. Gayton McKenzie clearly has got energy. That's correct. Now, that doesn't mean he's a good worker. It doesn't mean he gets things right. He does have an energy, which is great. Whether he's actually delivering on his job, well, do I know that? I don't know anything. Actually, I don't know, because I'm not there. We'll have to get that report back from the president when he does. But we can ask the question, who's currently performing of the whole new crop of executive ministers in Parliament, in the cabinet, right? Let's get the news headlines. Just go on 4:30. Here's Daneo.
Thank you, Ashraf. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 4:30. For accused and diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg claims he was violated at Kgosi Mampuru prison on the instruction of Correctional Services Minister Pieter Groenewald. In other news, Eskom in the Northwest has welcomed the arrest of 3 people linked to the theft of 16 cable drums worth over 1 million rand from Vromarastad Customer Network Center. And thousands of people living in counties along Taiwan's eastern coastline have been evacuated from their homes. This as Super Typhoon Kongray makes landfall. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg House.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Heidelberg Road exit. The M1 southbound in Omonda has a crash reported before Xavier Street. The R59 northbound has a crime scene reported between Randval Road and the R550 Heidelberg Road. The road's been closed off. And the N1 northbound in Midrand has a stationary vehicle reported after the Allendale Road exit. In KZN, traffic lights not working at the M7 St. John's Avenue and the M13 highway in Pinetown. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported before Spaghetti Junction, and the R102 is slow moving near Mount Moriah Drive. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards Jeptiaga Avenue. Bakengracht Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Bosmansdam Road westbound in Summer Greens is queuing towards Montague Drive, and Albert Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
Listen, lots of people are talking about Formula One, and they're certainly talking about Gayton McKenzie. So when you're up for it, you can give us the Gayton McKenzie report card. But I'll let you decide when. What do you want to start with now?
Well, let's start off where at the South African Football Association, President Danny Jordaan saying that he's confident that CAF President Patrice Motsepe will retain his position next year, and revealed that 40 out of 54 member associations have nominated him for a second term. Jordaan was speaking during a press conference at the Safa House today to announce the official endorsement of Motsepe for a second term. Now, Jordaan was joined by his counterpart from Zambia, Botswana, Eswatini, and Malawi, and they revealed that almost all the COSAFA members are singing the same tune.
The nominations, and a nomination is not a vote, but nomination is expression of support. And we have reached over 40 out of 53. So if the vote follows the pledge, you see what is the end result. We are confident that he will be re-elected as president.
Still staying with football, Kaizer Chiefs coach Nasruddin Nabi has called out the media for raising expectations that his team is a serious contender for silverware this season. He was speaking at the Carling Knockout press conference at the PSL head offices today ahead of the quarterfinal showdown against Mamelodi Sundowns this coming weekend. And Nabi says that there's still a lot of work to be done. Chiefs have not won a silverware in 9 years, and Nabi says that this will not be solved immediately.
Pourquoi je dis ceci, encore une fois avant de répondre, c'est parce que j'ai constaté que certains médias, ils font exprès, pas tous, certains médias, que c'est flagrant.
This mission that we are fulfilling has many steps, and there are some medias that are trying to portray the Kaizer Chief that Kaizer Chief is a contender for a trophy or for the league immediately, which is not the case. But we have to play and get the results right.
Well, moving on to swimming, South Africa's Peter Kutsa claimed gold in the men's 200-meter backstroke in Singapore, becoming the Triple Crown winner with victory in all three World Cup series. Now, Kutsa led from start to finish to stop the clock at 1 minute 49.88 seconds, and it is his sixth gold medal in the three World Cup meets, and upped his total medals count to 7, which is half of what South Africa has scooped so far in the pool. Then in rugby, England prop Joe Mola has left the national team's camp ahead of Saturday's end-of-the-year test opener against the All Blacks in London, citing personal reasons. The 34-year-old, who has 95 test caps, reportedly informed head coach Steve Borthwick and senior players of his decision after arriving at the training base in Bagshot. Then in golf, two young South Africans, Robin Williams and Aldrich Potgieter, will make their debuts at the Nedbank Golf Challenger in December. December. Williams was given a personal invitation after a good performance over the past season on the Sunshine Tour, finishing second on the Sunshine Tour Order of Merit, while Potgieter became the second youngest ever to earn a US PGA Tour card through the Corn Ferry Tour money list after finishing 29th. Now the top 30 earned privileges for next season on the PGA Tour. Finally, in motorsport, leading MotoGP riders have called for the season finale in a fortnight to be moved out of Valencia because of a deadly once-in-a-generation flooding in Spain. Now, at least 95 people have been killed, and troops, police and firefighters are racing to find survivors and victims in the Valencia region of the country. Now, the MotoGP World title will go down on the final race weekend of the campaign that is scheduled for the circuit Ricardo Tormo just outside Valencia on the 16th to the 17th of November. And according to Spain's Jorge Martin, he says that the best solution will be to race elsewhere. And just before I say goodbye, I have a comment actually here from Salamu. Salamu alaikum.
No. That's Aslam Kota. That must be Aslam Kota, right?
Is it him? Oh, yes, Aslam Kota, yes.
So, by the way, many people are commenting about Formula One. I see that across the board. So, what did he say? He's a cricket commentator and Formula One fan.
Yeah, and he was saying that there was a study actually conducted in the early 2000s, and the finding was that tourists visiting are overhyped, and on many fronts, there are no benefits to the economy and job creation. However, he says that the Kyalami circuit will definitely need massive upgrading, and the infrastructure that is required by Liberty Media or F1 to stage a Grand Prix, which would cost well beyond $100 million. Now, the upgrades will definitely indeed create job opportunities, and South Africa's sports profile and image will definitely leverage a lot. But his questioning is that how long does this impact, or will this impact last? And he says that he's been a big F1 fan since 1973, and he has watched over 14 Grand Prix, including one in the UK, and that F1 has also become a spectator sport for the elite. And he's thinking that ticket prices could go for as much as 5,000 to 10,000 per person, judging by the prices at most races.
Fascinating insights, Aslam Kota. Thank you for that. But I mean, in giving those insights to me, something we've chatted about before.
Yeah.
That I do believe, as a fan of most sports in the world, that the hosting of events are too expensive, and they don't necessarily bring the rewards you should get. There's lots of promises. I think when Greece hosted the Olympic Games, within 10 years they were bankrupt as a country, right? South Africa, I'd like us to get a real big study now of how much we benefited ultimately from the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah.
Besides the goals and the games, I'm talking about actual benefit as a country. Montreal, I think they paid their debts for about 30 years after they hosted the 1976 Olympic Games. So to Aslam's point, and it's a valid point, is it really worth hosting a big event? Are the returns on investment in money terms worth it? Some may say it never should be measured in money terms, but ultimately if the government pays, then it means the taxpayers are paying.
Do you think F1 should come to South Africa?
I'd like it. I don't know the numbers. I do think the 2010 World Cup, with hindsight, cost us a lot of money.
It did.
That you do wonder, and it didn't change the football team because we took a plummeting, not in the tournament, which we did, but even after that, we didn't get better for the next 10 years. So you have to wonder. But maybe what we should do, two things. Get someone who can analyze sports events to talk about this soon, because I'd love to maybe even chat about it tomorrow. And of course, we also need to get another EFF response in terms of that conversation we had earlier. So, I mean, those are things for my notebook. Let's see what happens.
Absolutely.
You have more to say?
No.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that we all have our own opinions. And I did not say the previous ministers did nothing at all.
Well, the challenge to you is this. Tell us what Gayton McKenzie has done. Don't tell me now. Don't tell me now. We'll give you 1 hour to think about it, okay? You can go and do your homework. There we are. More sport from Tumi, absolutely, in an hour. Let's get to the markets in a moment.
Get ready to make your life easier with TV License's new website features. We upgraded to the secure iVery 3D payment gateway and the ability to manage your account information, view, print, and download a detailed TV license statement. You can make website queries for an account and technical support, which has made things immensely easier. It is now a smooth, effortless process that can respond to all user inquiries quickly and efficiently. It is a great way to quickly get the help you need without worrying about a thing. Get started now and enjoy the convenience of TV License's new website features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV Licenses, do it for the convenience that matter.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
I'm going to take your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes in just a moment. In the meantime, Makwe Masilela is the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good chatting to you. You've got an update on local and global markets, but before that, regarding AB InBev's Q3s, right?
Yes, afternoon to you and to the listeners. Remember, beer volumes fell more than expected after continued weaker sales in China and Argentina. And the world's biggest brewer and Budweiser maker said volumes fell by 2.4%. And just like other brewers, it's affected by a slowdown when it comes to consumer spending. And that's in both US and Asia, leading drinkers to buy cheaper beer. And in China, sales fell almost 16%, largely due to poor performance when it comes to pubs and restaurants as consumers cut back. While in Argentina, inflationary pressures hit spending, but revenue was up 2.1%, with underlying earnings per share up 13.9%. And unfortunately, the share price fell a whopping 6.5%. And Ashraf, our budget left investors cold as fiscal deficit is expected to widen to 5%, up from the 4.5% projected in February of the GDP. And U.S. election violence risk is an unpriced risk and stands to strengthen U.S. dollar dominance should it materialize. Owning the world's dominant currency has helped to hold down U.S. borrowing costs and prices of commodities. Traders trimmed bets on rate cuts after data showing the U.S. economy expanded at a robust pace in Q3, and the U.S. key Fed inflation rate hit 2.1% in September as expected, very close to their 2% target. And we've seen that the Eurozone growth also was better than expected as Germany dodged a recession. Also, China factory activities expanded for the first time since April, and a stronger than expected U.S. fuel demand. And the reports that OPEC could delay planned December output increases lifted oil prices, which are up 1% at $72 a barrel, and a firmer dollar after the release of that U.S. inflation dented safe haven demand play, dragging the yellow metal, which is still at elevated levels, but now is down 1.5% at $2,759, but also platinum is down 1.5% at $955. Ashraf, markets are in the red with the JSE down 1.2%, with our resources being the main culprit, down almost 3%. The rand is flat against the US dollar, 1766, 22.79 against the pound, and 19.17 against the euro.
Okay, and that's it from you, Makwe. Thanks for your time. We'll have a chat again tomorrow. Makwe Masilela, right? Okay, let's get to your calls, and in fact, let's get to the voice notes right away. So earlier on, we chatted about this being, World Cities Day, and I said, how would you describe your city or your town or your dorpie or your village in just one word? Just tell me the name of the place and one word as to how you describe it. I'd love to know. Some people have commented about that too. Here we are.
Hello, Ashraf, Stephen, Kabecha. The word is broken. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have to say much more. Kabecha, broken.
Good afternoon, Mr. A.
I can call my city all in one. That's Mother City, Cape Town.
Mother City, and it's and that Cape Town's got two names, Cape Town, but all in one. Okay, points taken. We had a conversation about Jacob Zuma. Remember, tomorrow is a big day for him.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and the production team. It makes me wonder, why would Jacob Zuma have to appeal the National Disciplinary Committee's decision of the ANC to expel him, knowing well that he didn't even campaign for ANC in the national general elections of 2024, but instead campaigned for MK Party, whom he is a co-founder of. This old man is confused, man. He should just go back home and look after his livestock. I thank you, Lotta Emonti.
Look after his livestock. He's clearly not going to listen to you, I can tell you.
Afternoon. Do me 100% correct on your statement, and please never retract for whatever reason, and never be apologetic about that. The Honorable Bandit is doing the most. That guy has outdone himself. He's absolutely carrying this position with both hands and both feet. So 100% correct statement. Gayton McKenzie is out there. The guy is doing what he promised South Africans that he will do, and the people that voted for him, he's definitely delivering. Let's not keep quiet about that. Let's make the noise so that the man can be able to push as hard as he possibly can, and maybe perhaps motivate his colleagues. Thank you very much.
Well, whether he's actually delivering, I don't know, but I will say this, and I've said this before. He definitely he's got energy, and he has his eyes on many, many balls in one go, being sport, and some may say, what about arts and culture? But he's definitely got his, well, in this case, fingers on the pulse, which is a lot better than many others, right? Whether he actually delivers, we shall wait and see.
Hello, Ashraf. I hope you're doing well with your team there in the studio. I think, you know me, I'm an MK member, I'm a Jacob Zuma follower. But I think we need to give credit to the way, to the GNU so far, the way they have performed. There are a lot of changes, positive changes that we are seeing. There's a lot yet to do, but we need to give them credit. They are doing well. They are doing well. We have our differences. I don't like Cyril Ramaphosa. I don't like him, but at the moment the guy is doing well with his team. There are a lot of changes. The way the police are acting, are working now. The ministers are doing their job. I think the country looks promising. Let's give credit to the guys. They are doing well. They are doing well. The GNU team is doing well, guys. We need to applaud for them. I think we are on the right direction as the country. Thank you very much.
Well, there you are. How often does that happen? An MK supporter speaking up the success of the GNU so far. South Africa is alive with possibilities, isn't it? Rapaleng Khadebe is a sports fanatic, I understand, right? Let's talk about F1.
Like F1 fanatic, I think I must say. Yes, F1. Look, I think to me, bringing F1 here is an absolute must. The problem is that putting up an infrastructure, if there's no guarantee that it will be definitely on the calendar, that's where the challenge is. But I think it's a very good move. If you look at the statistics alone, I mean, there was like 6,150,000 attendance for just last year calendar. And it's always that more than 3/4 of the visitors are the ones who actually visit the place. And we are talking about a high premium clientele. So I think the return is immense. The problem is if it's a once-off event, I think that is where it gets a little technical. But I'm telling you, bringing F1, I'll make you an example. A friend of mine went to Abu Dhabi last year, and the figures he was talking about, how much he spent there, and I was trying to interpret and said, it's really not affordable for you and ordinary people. So the spin-offs are definitely great. F1 is one of the most interesting sports, highly technologically advanced in all aspects. So I think bringing it here will just ignite something totally different. Yes, I agree that the infrastructure is massive. Finally, I think I want to say, yes, there is some palpable presence when it comes to Mackenzie's love. I mean, he's just there. And I think the steam that he brought, he just ignited the fire that was already there. We would love to have F1 in South Africa. I'd be the first one to buy that ticket.
Well, there you are. Even at 10,000 rands, maybe let me know if you got a free comp for me when you get
look,
it.
I'll have to sleep outside for a few days. But I'll definitely.
Thanks for that call. I'll tell you what, seriously, if we get the F1, we're going to appoint you project head, okay? Because you've stated a very good case for that. So thank you for that. Well, further comments about F1, the case for South Africa hosting a Formula One Grand Prix, because they'll never give it to you for one season. They'll at least 5 years. You've got a runway to do that. Okay. So what's the case for South Africa? Kyalami to host it. Would you say yay or nay, and explain why? Let's talk about important developments in the world of the media right after this.
Hi everyone, my name is Itumele Nkune, SABC Sport football analyst. When I feel down and I listen to gospel, it gives me motivation. I'm a person who loves all genres. If I was a chef, my favorite meal that I would prepare would be pap, cabbage, meaty bones, with a bit of acha on the side. My favorite language is Portuguese. Bom dia, como está? Estou bem. What I like about SABC Sport is they give you the platform and the permission to be yourself and speak any language.
Catch the ever-passionate Itumele Nkune's analysis of Bola Letu on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, you've got your fingers on the pulse, don't you? So what about you commenting on some of the things I've spoken about? One is one word to describe your city, your town, your dorpie, your village. Come on, it's World Cities Day. Just one word, as others have done. Send us a voice note or a text message, 0614-104-107. Formula One, talk about that. Gayton Mackenzie, go ahead and talk about it. Or this point that I made, which ones of the new members of the GNU, I'm talking about executive, on the cabinet, that so far have impressed you, and tell me why. Would love to know. You can also comment about Jacob Zuma and the goings on regarding the EFF and the Command Council. Wow, so much happening in one single day. Let's talk about media and marketing and some significant developments regarding the Press Council and independent media. And independent media is a company, of course. So the Press Council has expelled independent media with immediate effect. My understanding, that's the broad company that owns many of the papers we may be familiar with. It would be the Star in Joburg, Pretoria News, Cape Argus, I would think it is, maybe Cape Times 2 Week, and many others around the country, right? So they've been suspended with immediate effect. Let's find out why, and let's understand the workings of the Press Council. Fani Groenewald with me, who's the public advocate for the Press Council of South Africa. Fani, good connecting here on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, and for the opportunity.
Thank you. First things first, so why has independent media, the company headed up by Iqbal Survey, right? Why have they been expelled?
It's a very unfortunate matter that is actually one of the sad days. But unfortunately, after a finding by the Press Ombuds panel against them, and they lost their application to leave to appeal, they failed to adhere to the sanction ordered by the panel. And basically about an article they wrote, Sunday Independent published. It was about Karen Moore, the News 24 journalist. And amongst other things, they accused of being a Nazi propagandist. Now, basically, it was a comment piece, but the comment piece must be based on facts that are true or reasonably true. And unfortunately, in the hearing, Independent could not prove that it was based on facts that were true or reasonably true. And unfortunately, they then refused to adhere to the sanction. And there's no way that we can allow that. When they agreed to join the Press Council, they signed a contract that they would adhere to the press code and they would abide by any rulings against them.
And let's be clear about what were they sanctioned for, just so that we understand that fully. What did they do? Yeah.
Well, basically, the finding was against them. The finding was that they should apologize, retract the article, and also delete it online. They applied for leave to appeal, which was not granted. Remember, our appeals panel is headed by a retired judge, Judge Nwete, and he found that there was no reasonable prospect of success, and so he declined the application to leave to appeal. So then the sanction stood, and which they unfortunately refused to adhere to.
Okay, so in refusing, you say you had no choice but to expel. I mean, understand most of the apologies we see in newspapers for errors, you're saying that comes from where the press council would then effectively find against a newspaper, and that's why they would apologize. That would be the normal thing we see every day, right?
That's a normal thing, and that happens every day. I mean, if you take, there are thousands and thousands of articles published every day, and we only receive about 300 complaints per year, which very few are actually then found against the publication. But all our subscribing publications would adhere to the sanctions and publish it.
All right. Now,
that's the end of the story.
What do you say about, and I've been certainly following the Iqbal survey story in independent media, that over not just this incident, but over a period, he's saying that effectively he is a victim of a campaign by whichever forces to effectively silence him because of his stance, let's call it a pro-black stance, and a stance that does not fit in the narrative of a white status quo agenda. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I mean, that's been the general position that he has been claiming all the time. So basically what he's saying, he's not been friendly with the press council over the years because he's seen victimization specifically to his media group.
Well, the press council decided we will not respond to all the allegations widely published by their own publications, accusing us of all other things. But I can just remind your listeners that Dr. Survey is the independent media group withdrew in 2016 after they weren't happy about our waiver, that we dropped the waiver, that the waiver was initially there that complainants have to waive their rights, give up their rights to go to court. We took that away. They withdrew then. Then at the beginning of this year, they reapplied to come back to the press council. And we welcomed it back because obviously we prefer that all the publications online and print do adhere to the jurisdiction of the press council. So we welcomed it back. And to be quite honest, there were a few complaints against them, which we resolved, and this one was against them, the Scar and Morn one. Mm-hmm. And, it's not the first publication. It's not the first publication that have a ruling against them. So about this whole campaign against independents, I can just say it's not true.
Okay, we want to news time, so I'm going to move very quickly with this. So at the moment they're expelled, and we can hopefully maybe invite Iqbal Survey to give his point of view, right? But here's the quick answer to this one. Does his expulsion, that's the independent media group, one of the largest and most impactful in the country, does the expulsion not weaken the case for South African media? I mean, it robs us of something big time, doesn't it? Just quick answer to that.
Yes. As I said, it's a sad day. We would prefer they remain under the jurisdiction of the Press Council.
Okay.
As I said, since 2016 until the beginning of the year, they withdrew and they came back. And then we thought, okay, well, they'll also be part of our jurisdiction. Okay. And remember, for news you can trust, we always say that you look for the publications that carry the press code of the Press Council.
Okay. So it's the seal of approval. Let's get other comments on that. Fani Groenewald, appreciate your time. Public advocate for the Press Council of South Africa, so the independent media group effectively expelled from the Press Council. What do you make of that, right? And just the state of South African media, print media and specifically in general. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Thank you. Ashraf Liebenberg claims he was violated in prison in a super typhoon hits Taiwan. Good afternoon. Fraud accused and diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg claims he was violated at the Kgosi Mampuru prison in Pretoria on the instructions of the Correctional Services Minister Pieter Groenewald. The allegations emerged in the Bronkhorstspruit Magistrates Court, where Liebenberg and 8 co-accused, including his wife, appeared on charges related to an alleged diamond investment scam. 7 co-accused have since been granted bail. The remaining 2 will now apply for bail next month. Liebenberg's lawyer told the court that his client was moved to a single cell in the prison's maximum security section where the alleged abuse continued.
The head of prison, Mr. Smith and Mr. Meyer, already received him there, which is already quite strange. And while they were received in that prison, they received a phone call from the minister, Mr. Groenewald, that apparently told them in my client's presence over the phone that they must make his life hell at prison. Since then, everybody that he was in custody with him got assaulted if they befriended him. The evening that late they came into his cell, they made him strip naked, strip searched him, said, "We know that you've got a phone, you had a phone, you've got a phone."
Eskom in the Northwest has welcomed the arrest of 3 people linked to the theft of cable drums worth more than 1 million rand from the Wolmanstad Customer Network Centre. According to Eskom, the arrest followed an armed robbery incident that occurred at the centre. Eskom's Ezekiel Baruti.
During the incident, unknown armed suspects entered the Customer Network Centre, CNC, and loaded 16 drums of Eskom cable valued at 1,051,000 rand onto the trucks and fled the scene. The 3 suspects appeared in the Wolmaranstad Magistrates Court yesterday. The 2 trucks involved in the crime have been confiscated from the unscrupulous owner and will be presented as evidence.
Taxi operators belonging to the top 6 taxi associations have given the Johannesburg Mayor, Dante Moreira, until Wednesday next week to respond to their demands, failing which they vowed to escalate their protest action. They marched from Mary Fitzgerald Square, Newtown, to the Mayor's offices in Braamfontein, where they handed over their memorandum. They said the Mayor's failed to respond to their queries about payments due to taxi owners who surrendered their minibus taxis and operating permits to make way for the Rea Vaya bus system. Top 6 chairperson Peter Mabe.
The memorandum represents the unified voice of 299 taxi operators who have been denied their rightful compensation for too long. We urge the City of Johannesburg to act with urgency, engage with us in good faith, and resolve this issue once and for all. The ROT payments are not just financial obligation. They are moral obligation to the people who sacrifice their livelihoods and other operators who lost their lives for the vision of the city.
The KwaZulu-Natal Premier Tamin Tulis reiterated his call for cultural and religious tolerance. This as thousands of Hindus in the country celebrate the Festival of Lights, or Diwali. But it's the fireworks that spark the most controversy, as many residents object to using them in their neighbourhoods. Ntuli says the province belongs to all those who live in it.
The people of KwaZulu-Natal will also understand the importance according to the Hindu community. I'm encouraging the people of KwaZulu-Natal really to be tolerant, because you see, even during other celebrations that happens by different communities or religions, in fact, ought to be also accommodated and to be acknowledged.
The Meyringspoort Pass near Oudtshoorn in the Western Cape has been reopened following heavy rains that flooded the adjacent river. Traffic authorities have warned the last drift towards Klaasdroom is still overflowing slightly and have asked motorists to reduce their speed. The Swartberg Pass has also been reopened. Thousands of people living in countries along Taiwan's eastern coast have been evacuated from their homes. This as a super typhoon makes landfall. The BBC's Rupert Wingfield-Hayes has more.
Taiwan's capital is being lashed by strong winds and driving rain as Typhoon Kongray makes its way ashore on the east coast of the island. It is a huge storm, nearly 500 kilometres in diameter, with winds gusting to over 200 kilometres an hour. Taiwan has already been struck by 2 very strong typhoons this year, but Kongray looks like setting a new record. Up to now, no storm of this size has ever been recorded hitting Taiwan in November. Tonight, that will change.
Top story: fraud accused and diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg claims he was violated at the Kgosi Mampuru prison in Pretoria on the instructions of the Correctional Services Minister. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
In your sports this hour, Proteas beat Bangladesh in 3 days. The SAI F1 Grand Prix at Kyalami in 2027. And Peter Gutser claimed gold in men's 200-meter backstroke in Singapore. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedford View is slow moving on the ramp to the N12 east at Giluli's interchange. The M1 southbound in Omonda is a crash reported before Xavier Street exit. The N1 southbound in Midrand is a crash reported after Samrand Road exit. All lanes are open. In Pretoria, Eskempatleli Drive northbound has delays towards Moot Street and the N1 northbound queuing towards the R21 highway. In KZN, on the N2, road surface damage reported just west of Isolgowini, so delays and diversions are possible. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported before Spaghetti Junction. The R102 is slow moving near Mount Moriah Drive, and Allen Patton Road southbound in Pietermaritzburg is closed at the N3 southbound on-ramp due to roadworks. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound slow moving through the N1 Kuburg interchange, and the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom, reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Centre. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I've been asking you that today being World Cities Day, give me your one word to best describe, just one word, I don't need commentary, just one word to best describe your city, your town, your dorpie, your village, and we've had responses, right? So here's one saying, my place is Kakamas, but then there's commentary on it anyway. Beautiful place with grape farms all over the place, Ograbi's waterfalls in a nature reserve park, and 4x4 trails, and also the German-made cars like Mercedes, BMW, and Audis tested there for endurance before going to production. Welcome to the Groen Kalahari from Terence from Kakamas. You've really put your Kakamas on the map, Terrace. I'm just thinking, that's like a travelogue. I'm like thinking SA Tourism needs to contact you. That's just so well put together, right? And there are many others saying some things about their towns and their cities. So feel free to tell me about that, okay? I certainly will check it out. Right, let's talk about something, in terms of your towns and cities, we have to worry about the climate. It has an impact on countries and towns and cities and dorpies and the world, right? South Africa, as you may be aware, recently outlined its negotiating position for the climate change talks at COP29. And one of the key issues that was raised by our ministry, or the minister, in this case, Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Dr. Deon George, is that there is a pressing need for large-scale financial support to enable developing economy nations to meet their climate targets and progress towards sustainable, low-carbon development. He joins us now. There's a sense for many people that, in fact, it's the wealthiest countries that are the biggest problem that actually provide the least amount of support around the issues of climate change, right, in terms of support, right? So, Dr. Deon George with me, the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. Appreciate your time, Minister George.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. So you make an interesting point that I just mentioned in the intro. There's a pressing need for large-scale financial support to enable developing economy nations. Right? Tell me about why is there a pressing need and where should that money come from?
Well, I think the key thing is that we all know that the climate is changing and it's starting to change more rapidly. We've seen in our own country, KZN, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, we've seen the storms, we're getting drier. and we've seen devastating storms across the world. So, and also now recently the floods in Spain. So it's very clear that our climate change is speeding up, and we need to do something, and it's urgent, and it is in fact an existential crisis. But of course, if you're going to transition to a low carbon economy, like from South Africa, we have a lot of coal and we burn it in our coal powered fire stations, etc. And we've committed to a just energy transition. And that means we want to go to a lower carbon economy, new greener energies, but we don't want to leave anybody behind. And that costs a lot of money. And it's not only us as a developing economy country, but it's many others as well. So there was an agreement, it was several years ago, it was called the Paris Agreement, where the developed economy countries committed to contribute towards fighting climate change and assisting the developing economy countries. They promised $100 billion per annum. They never paid it, although they said last year that they did reach that $100 billion. But, you know, it wasn't specifically only for climate resilience. It was also for development, etc. So our position is, and this is the global position, is that there does need to be a new collective quantified goal, NCQG they call it. It will be negotiated at COP29 and then carry on most likely at COP30 in Brazil next year. But the key thing is we're saying at least $1.3 trillion per annum is required from the developed economy countries to help fund the developing economy countries such as ours to do the transition. Because if we don't do that, our planet is going to warm up more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, and then we're going to have a very serious problem on our hands. So there is more than enough money. There's just the political will that's needed to actually spend it in the right places on the right things. It's not only about the money, it's obviously about mitigation. How do we cut back on our emissions? We've got our new Climate Change Act that we're rolling out, we started rolling out. And then, of course, adaptation. We need climate resilient infrastructure. The Minister mentioned that yesterday, or Finance mentioned that yesterday in the budget. There's lots that need to be done. We need the finances for it, and that's the discussion that we're going to be having at COP29.
So help us with this COP29, where, of course, that's the coming together of people. I've certainly been to the COP17 in Durban many, many years ago. Just for those who don't understand, the COP is an acronym for what?
That's the Congress of the Parties. And basically what that comes from is, obviously it's been around for many years because it's already COP29. There are in fact 3 COPs. There is the Climate Change COP that's this year in Baku in Azerbaijan. I've just returned from pre-COP where there was preliminary discussions, and then they will resume on the 11th of November. And then there's one at the moment on biodiversity and conservation that's in Colombia. That's also a COP, and then it's all under the UN, basically the UN auspices. And then there's going to be one in December in Saudi Arabia, and that's about desertification. That's the drying of the planet, etc. So the COP we're talking about now, COP29, which is every year, the others are every second year, therefore their numbers are different. This one is called, basically we're referring to it as the finance COP, because that's where the big piece is on talking about the finances. And also every nation must basically set a nationally determined contribution towards fighting climate change. So, for example, how's every country going to cut back on their emissions? And that's going to be the big debate that starts now and then carries on to be finalized next year, 2025, when countries have to actually table their nationally determined contributions. So it all hangs together basically that way.
Okay, but as you said, so I mean, ultimately, all these different COPs have one thing in common. They are people and organizations and big lobby groups and groupings coming together under the guise of various forms of climate change. I mean, I get that, right? Now, yours is with finance. You made the point about the need for more money. So one thing is saying it has to be a negotiating position, but give us the nuts and bolts of that negotiating position, meaning simply saying we need more money is not going to cut, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, we know that many of the developed economy countries that actually have made the promises that they made are battling to actually meet those contributions, because we've had elections in the world. We know that there's several governments that have moved to the right, and therefore they are feeling less inclined to assist with the developing economies. So that's the one thing. The other thing is that, you know, there is more than enough money in the world, but it's the choices that that need to be made. So, for example, South Africa, we've already made our choices. We've said we've got the new Climate Change Act. We want to move away from coal, but it's going to take time. We need to build transmission lines. It's going to cost trillions for us to do that. And so where do you get the money from? So we actually, as South Africa, have proposed that we need to have the conversation on a new climate finance model, which would have the NCQG as a basic component, and then we need to look at other components as well. For example, the cost of capital, because obviously South Africa is very heavily indebted. We're paying a billion rand per day on interest payments. There's no space for us to borrow money to be more resilient, because we want to be. So we are very clear as a country, that our national position is that we want a transition, but we need to finance it effectively.
Okay.
We've had money from Germany and from EU. They're being generous, and we haven't spent as much as they've given us, so there is some space there, but we need much more to become resilient like we want to be.
And help me understand this in terms of the political will you spoke about earlier on. Am I right in saying there are some fairly large industrialized nations, perhaps the USA, correct me if I'm wrong, who effectively are not signatories to these COP agreements, and therefore they don't have to adhere to these policies? Am I right there?
Well, the USA is in fact a signatory to Paris Agreement, but Donald Trump in particular has said that the USA will withdraw from the Paris Agreement if he becomes the president. Now, he did say that the last time, so we're not quite sure what would happen. But yes, what the US does matters enormously, because in the event of, for example, a Trump presidency, we know that there's going to be less focus on climate resilience, etc., because that's basically what he said as an administration that might be coming in. So it's going to be very interesting because, of course, the USA is going to be the president of the G20 next year. The year after that, 2026. South Africa is going to be the president of the G20 in 2025, and Brazil's just finished now. So there's basically a troika of Brazil, South Africa, and the USA that will be formed for the G20 when we have the climate discussions, etc. Now, if the USA goes off the page, we're going to have to see who's going to be the president in 2027 of the G20, because then we have to just hold the line while the US wobbles, for example. But we don't know what's going to happen next week, so that will be a bit of a wild card. Also, it'll be interesting to see what happens at COP then. If the government in the USA changes, how are they going to negotiate? Because they've been negotiating in a particular way. Will it change? So that's going to be important to see. Also, it's also important to see what China does, because China is very much of the position that they are developing economy country, and therefore it is the developed economy countries that must contribute, and that they aren't obligated to contribute financially to this. So the dynamic is very much connected to the geopolitical complications that we have in the world. But for South Africa, as we've said many times, we are a sensible citizen in the world. We are friends with everyone, and we basically have the conversations with everybody that matters to say, look, we want a transition. We do want to invest in our resilient infrastructure. We do want to do the right things, but we can't leave anybody behind. So as we transition to the greener economies, we need to make new industries, greener industries, for example, in conservation and other places, and renewables, etc. So we are well positioned in terms of exactly what it is that we want to achieve. Now it's up to us to actually get to the table and sit down and say, right, how do we negotiate the best deal for us as South Africa? Then, of course, look at the region, the continent, and, of course, the broader world. So it is a very important conversation to be had. We are ready. We have a very able team, and so we believe that we'll be able to get the best possible outcome, and sensibly. We don't have to make a whole stack of noise. We must just focus on what needs to be achieved. Because if we don't move in the right direction, we're going to have a problem.
All right, here's the last thing very, very quickly. We're out of time. Is it accurate to say that most of the developed countries in the world are the biggest contributors to some of the biggest social ills around climate change, and yet the developing countries of the world, read #Africa, suffer the brunt of it? Is that an accurate description?
Well, I think what is true to say is that for 200 years or more that the developed economy countries burnt their coal and, of course, contributed to the situation we're in. But now that does sometimes get conveniently forgotten, that it's now the developing economy countries that, well, they're looking at us and saying, well, you are now, it's the polluter pay principle. But I mean, hey, who did all the pollution to begin with? So that obviously is a fact. But I mean, you can't get stuck on the past. You've got to focus on now and then the future. So we don't go down that road, but everybody knows that is so. So if you've got 200 years of coal in the ground like we have, and we're not going to use it, well then where do you get the financial justice? And that's the thing that we're talking about as well.
Point.
So right. Yes, we are quite clear in terms of where we want to go.
Okay, let's see what comes out of all your many COP conversations. Some may say keep your, or hold COP, which is a very South African phrase, right? Dr. Deon George, Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. A fascinating conversation, really, on climate change and the money. This is the National Pulse.
What's going on, everybody? You want to catch the summer, 2nd of November, 7:30 is all the red carpet action. We don't come through looking like that when the night arrives. 8 p.m. main show only on SABC 1. Yeah, what's calling in?
Celebrate 30 years of music with the Summer Awards. Saturday 2 November. Yellow carpet starts at 7:30 p.m. and the main awards at 8 p.m. on SABC 1.
Amidst misinformation and disinformation, where can we find reliable news? Turn to radio, your trusted source for truthful updates. For over 3 decades, we've upheld integrity as a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct. Count on us for news you can trust. Say no to fake news. Radio, keeping it real since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters. Tune in, trust, and stay informed.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Mike says I live in East London and I can see why it is called slummies. Right. By the way, tomorrow, every Friday from 5 to 6, that last hour, we have a fireside chat. And my guest tomorrow is Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi. You know that name? Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi. Do not miss that, right? Well, if she's a former politician, what about one of the incumbents? The Deputy President is Paul Mashatile. And he had to face a Q&A in Parliament today, and we're going to pick out some of the important pronouncements that he made. He answered a question from the MK Party's Lucky Montana, once of Praza, remember that? Lucky Montana on the water task team.
I can start Tatan Montana. The reason why the president set up the water task team is precisely to ensure that we address these issues. You are spot on that there is a situation where some municipalities are not paying these water authorities. But we've also discovered that water infrastructure in many parts of our country is very old indeed and needs to be revamped. So the water task team is looking at these issues. The problems will be different in different provinces, but in the main, you will find that indeed there is old infrastructure that needs to be attended to. Together with the ministers of water and of COGTA, we are looking at this issue of payments. Some of the municipalities will say, well, we can't pay rent water or some of these water authorities because citizens are not paying.
And then Rise Mzansi, they asked a question to the Deputy President about municipalities. Okay, it doesn't mean he gave them no answer. We'll try and sort that out. Okay, let's get Phineas to just sort out why we can't play that sound. Let's see if we can move on to the... No, I think we can. It's okay. Rise Mzansi, municipalities. This is what the Deputy President said. In fact, no, let's get to the next one, okay? So we'll get to that one just now. So the Deputy President answered a question from the Patriotic Alliance on the skills development program as well as timelines for the program.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Peterson. Honorable Peterson, in fact, these programs are already been rolled out as we speak. As you may be aware that we've also came up with a number of initiatives driven from the presidency. Your presidential youth employment intervention initiatives are already in place. And also, if you look at what many of our TVET colleges are teaching now, it's in line with what is the requirement of the South African economy. So these programs are not planned for the future. They are already being rolled out as we speak, and there is a lot of progress. We are, through the HRDC, we are linking up with all the institutions of higher learning, universities, TVET colleges, but we also bring in labor, business to work with us as we roll out these programs. But there is a lot of progress already in place. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, and by the way, Innocent Hutchinson in Kuruman saying, good day, I stripped my one word for my own town or city is Indindini in Mpumalanga, where Samora Machel's plane was, well, it crashed. So there's another one, right? Let's see if we can. In fact, we were having a problem playing that sound to that question. So my apologies for that. But don't forget Geraldine Fraser Moleketi. We're going to talk to her as a fireside chat for an hour tomorrow. So looking forward to that conversation. And I hope you are. There's a connection. Julia's in Gayton.
Afternoon, Ashraf, to you and the rest of your team and to the viewers at home. Ashraf, I wish, first of all, I'm Yebo from Kabeja. I wish I could one day get a platform where I'm going to sit on a debate with Malema just to clarify or take him on just two issues where he's greatly misconcepted and unfair in the political spectrum. Second to that, I would like to give a great compliment to Gayton McKenzie. I don't want anyone to rebuke or suppress the guy because he has done wonders in a short space of time. He has shown us a different culture that everyone was longing for. First of all, we know how Danny Jordan was operating in the SAFA, but the guy came and changed certain things that were extremely unfair, you see, to certain individuals and other people within the sports spectrum. So credit to the guy, man.
Okay, so that's one credit to the guy. I want to speak to him on a platform. Maybe you'll get your chance. Here's another comment about, let me see, another one about Gayton.
Listen, Gayton McKenzie. You can't beat that man. You can't. There's just no chance. I'm here to tell you, give him the country. You will see a new South Africa. You will see it. I'm here to tell you and announce unto you that the man is not moved by nothing. He is moved to change this country, love this country. That's why you choose the name Patriotic Alliance. He's a patriot. We give him our votes day and night, yesterday, today, and forevermore. Salute, Gayton McKenzie. Salute, Paul Jacobs.
Okay, Paul. Thank you for that. Saying he'll give you a new South Africa. I thought that was F.W. de Klerk's brief. I'm just saying. Let's get to the news headlines now. Here's Greg House.
In the headlines, the police ministers called for the courts to be vigilant when handling sensitive cases, including minors and vulnerable victims. Fraud-accused diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg claims he was violated in prison on the instructions of the Correctional Services Minister, and the Spanish Prime Minister is visiting areas devastated by flash flooding, which has killed at least 95 people. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown Interchange towards Boysons. The N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrand Road. In Pretoria, Stormfall Road has a crash reported near Jan Coetzee Street. SKM Batleli Drive northbound has delays towards Moot Street. The N1 southbound has a crash reported at the R21 highway, and the N1 northbound is queuing towards the N4 Witbank highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported before Spaghetti Junction, and the R102 is slow moving near Mount Moriah Drive. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. The N2 outbound is slow moving toward the R300 highway. The M5 southbound queuing towards Krumbum Road exit, and the M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Tumi, in fact, Tumi is our very own Minister of Sport, speaking about the Minister of Sport all afternoon. Let's talk what? Banyana?
Yes, we're talking Banyana. They beat Mozambique in a penalty shootout for the COSAFA Cup final. After 90 minutes, the teams played to 1-1 draw. Then SA won 4-1 on penalties, and now South Africa will meet Zambia in the final. Meanwhile, still staying, talking about Banyana, SAFA CEO Lydia Munyabao says that they're working around the clock to secure another strong opponent to help Banyana's preparations for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations title defense. Now, Banyana recently concluded a European tour where they faced Denmark and England and will next face Jamaica in back-to-back friendlies next month.
We received a schedule from CAF talking about the qualifiers for the Women's AFCON 2026, which speaks to the fact that in February and the first two international breaks next year are going to be occupied with qualifiers for 2026 Women's AFCON. So that's what the team will be preparing for after Jamaica. I think it will be key that the team looks into having a camp in January, early February, so that they can prepare accordingly for whoever they will meet come February, because we don't know. The draw still has to be done. We don't know how pooling will be determined, but we have to be ready for whatever, comes our way, or whichever opposition comes our way. But I think, after the first two qualifiers in February and also in April, then we can look into perhaps another opposition inside the continent, prepare for the Women's AFCON come July. I think the last international break is in May. You can look at a much stronger opposition to prepare the team just before the AFCON, so that they can test, are they really there, are they almost there, what needs to be tweaked a month before the AFCON.
Well, still staying with football, around 4,000 tickets left for Saturday's Carling Black Label Knockout Cup quarterfinal between Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns. This will be the second time these sides meet this season, with the Brazilians claiming 2-1 win a month ago. Around 78,000 tickets were up for grabs, and it seems like when Saturday comes, those tickets will definitely be sold out. But moving on to cricket, the Proteas beat Bangladesh by an innings and 273 runs in under 3 days in the second test today. It's South Africa's biggest innings win ever in test cricket, and saw them secure a superb 2-0 clean sweep of the series, while it's also their third straight test. Now, the Proteas posted a massive 575 for 6 in the first innings, then bowled out Bangladesh for 159 in their first innings, and South Africa immediately triggered the follow-on, and another top bowling effort led by the spinners saw the Bangladesh bowled out for 143 in their second innings just before the close of play. Meanwhile, white ball head coach Rob Walter has named a strong 16-player squad for the upcoming 4-match Wonder Cement T20 International Series against India, scheduled from the 8th to the 15th of November. Heinrich Klaassen and David Miller, along with Keshav Maharaj, will return to the Proteas side for that first international series of the home summer. Gerald Coetzee and Marco Janssen have also been included in the squad after completing their structure conditioning blocks. Then in Netball South Africa, Chief Executive Officer Modiegi Komane will soon learn if her role as the CEO will continue, as her contract officially expired today. Komane, who succeeded Blanche de la Guerre after a decade in the position, was initially appointed to a one-year contract in October 2023. And now with her term concluded, Netball South Africa President Cecilia Molokwane has confirmed that the contract has ended and that discussions on her potential renewal will take place soon.
Renewing your contract, obviously, you have to know that you have to call a person in, and then you do the appraisal of the person of what they've done through the year and what has been achieved and what has not been achieved, and then you go from then you do the contract, and then after that, new CEO, if you have to appoint, you obviously have to go and advertise. If we are not advertising, we'll have to appoint somebody within Netball South Africa to act until the position is filled.
Then finally in motorsports, if all goes to plan, South Africa may soon witness the revival of Formula One racing at the iconic Kyalami Grand Prix circuit in 2027. Now, Kyalami's management have agreed to partner with motorsport consultancy Apex Circuit Design to chart a course towards FIA Grade 1 accreditation. These upgrades include extended run-off areas at 3 critical corners of the track, along with enhancement to the Armco barriers to meet F1 safety standards. Now, these safety adjustments are estimated to cost up to 177 million rand. And even if Kyalami is not selected for the 2027 calendar, these upgrades will elevate the circuit's status on the international motorsport stage, which could further open up to new opportunities. And before I say goodbye, earlier on, you were asking me, perhaps I should
not like goodbye. You say goodbye when you leave. Like when I'm looking at like players when they leave clubs and say like, this is my goodbye. No.
Okay, it's not a goodbye. It's a see you tomorrow, right? Yeah. Earlier on, you were saying perhaps I should write a list on what I think the Minister of Sports has done.
Some people are asking, say, come on.
I mean, for me, I think number one is transparency. He's shown as a minister that he can be transparent, and we've seen that a lot. I was reading actually, or he even mentioned that he refurbished a pool. He's working on school sports, something that he's working on. It's not what he's done, it's what he's doing, because how long has he been in the position? And a lot of people have been saying, no, compared to other ministers and stuff. Those ministers had how many years compared to what he's currently doing? Obviously, we're talking about the F1, him bringing it to South Africa. And for me also is inclusivity in sports for athletes, for all sports, even for fans. And we've seen how he's fighting that. Listen, let everything be done above board. Let it be fair. Can we include everyone? Let there be a process that is followed. Can there be no favoritism? And now he's also bringing the whole spinning into the championship that is coming through to South Africa. So I think for me, he's done a lot. Whether you feel my opinion is not the best, we all have opinions, but I still feel like for the short time that he's been in office, surely he's done a lot.
Tell you what, I wonder whether the super fans have an opinion about him. I'd love to know if they do, okay? Right, Tumi, thanks for that. That's exactly what you said.
And just by the way, this is from the sports side. Obviously, from the arts and culture side, I'm not going to say anything, but he did admit that he doesn't know much, and however, he will try get some people to come help him. And just by the way...
You better sort that out before they argue with him. Yeah. Goodness,
let me just say goodbye. My name is Tumin Kapele.
She'll be back tomorrow. She will be back.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Centre. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy Moyana gives us the numbers as he always does. Jimmy, good chatting to you. What's moving markets today?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Today we're going to be taking a look at some very interesting movements on the commodity side. It seems as though the markets didn't have a good day at all, but we're also going to be speaking to some of the companies that operate in the South African landscape. We're going to be speaking to Renergen. They had their 6-month update. They are the helium producer that's been trying to get helium out of the Free State for the longest time. We're going to get an update. It doesn't look like the business is doing too well at this stage. Losses are widening, but we're going to speak to the CEO and try and get a sense of what's happening there. Then we've got a conversation with the team at 27/4 around a new index that they've put out, a diversity, equity and inclusion index that measures the asset management space. Interestingly enough, it suggests that of the 8.4 trillion rand in assets under management that they took a look at across 90 odd firms, 18% of those firms were female-led in terms of CEOs and in terms of CIOs. So clearly a need for transformation and inclusion in the asset management space. We're going to speak to 27/4 around that and try and understand that a little bit better. Then we've got a conversation regarding the trend that's on the go at the moment around mobile hacking. I saw a very disturbing video on social media the other day from one of our well-known South African celebrities about being the victim of cell phone theft, mobile hacking, bank accounts being accessed, all of those sorts of things. And we usually do our consumer segments on a Wednesday, a warning Wednesday of sorts. But given that yesterday was a big day for the MTBPS, we thought we'd do it today. So we're going to look at that with some cybersecurity specialists, try and see how we can help people better protect themselves from these sorts of things and what you can do to prevent them, if anything at all. And then because it's Thursday, we've got an SME that we profile on a Thursday. We're going to be taking a look at a company based out of KZN called XTLS Dreadlocks. We're going to be speaking to their founder and getting a sense of what the business does, how it's grown. They have 3 stores already, and we're going to get a sense of where they are headed in terms of their future plans. Before we get to that, the markets have had a torrid day, as I mentioned a little earlier, and if we just have a quick look at those movements, the Shanghai markets were the only Asian markets that finished in the green. The Nikkei was down 0.5%, the Hang Seng was flat but marginally in the red, the Sydney ASX was down 0.25%. European markets not much better. All 3 that we kind of look at, being the London FTSE, the DAX in Germany and the CAC 40 in France, finished more than 1% in the red in each case. The Nasdaq is down 2.3%. The S&P 500 is down 1.5%. The Dow Jones is down 1%. South African markets, not much better there. Financial stocks, the smallest loser of the day, down 0.5%. Industrials 1.3% in the red. Resources 3.8% in the red. As a result, the all share 1.5% in the red. The top 40 1.6% in the red. Not a good day at all there. If we look at commodities prices, gold $2,736 an ounce, 1.8% in the red there. Brent crude holding steady at $73 a barrel, still below $75, so we're not too worried at this point. But platinum coming below $1,000, back at $994 an ounce. Palladium $1,131 an ounce, 1.5% down there. The currency side of it wasn't much better. The rand kind of holding steady against all the major currencies, with the rand against the dollar 17.66, pretty much where it ended up after yesterday's midterm budget policy statement. Against the euro, 19 rand 16. Against the British pound, gaining some ground there, 22 rand 73 cents. Against the Australian dollar, 11 rand and 56 cents. If you're looking at Bitcoin, that's at $70,700 a coin. It was closer to $72,000 a coin, but now it's back at 70,000, but that's still more than 1.2 million because of where the rand is sitting. So that's what we have to look forward to a little later on when we come back. But for now, back to you.
Well, listen, last thing before I go, just give me your quick soundbite answer of masterclass answer, that is, on what is pervasive audit opinion.
So we looked at this before the midterm on the Tuesday edition of our masterclass. We looked at qualified versus unqualified opinions, and we said that an unqualified audit opinion is the best that you can get. A pervasive one is probably one of the worst ones you can get. It implies that there are material misstatements on financial statements, but those misstatements are of such a pervasive nature that they affect a substantial portion of the financial statements. One such example that would come to mind immediately, if looking at it now in hindsight, would probably be a Steinhoff. There would have been misstatements there that would have inflated the asset value and asset base of the business at the time. That might not have been pervasive, but you could probably review the audits and review the statements now and come to that conclusion.
Okay, your time's up. If you continue longer, it may be rather pervasive. So let's just leave it at that. You've got a show coming up 6 to 7. Jimmy Moyaha, don't miss that, the SAFM Market Update.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
Channel 8 decluttered, recharged and flourishing you on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As coach, Lucia Drummond offers practical steps to a less is more lifestyle. HR specialist Utato Mabelane shares key skills to revitalize your career. Plus, Overnight Oats is the perfect after-gym recharger. That's Afternoon Express, this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom, reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Centre. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Tell you what, as part of our feature called Winning, we'll chat to Jeff Budland, the Senior Counsel, coming up shortly. Let's get your calls for now. Sydney in Arkenhoek, right? Sydney, hi.
Oh, good evening, Brother Ashraf. So, Sydney, the Labour in Arkenhoek, Pushpatris.
Thank you. Go ahead. What's your point?
Yes, Brother Ashraf, as a young primary school boy, when I visit our close town in less than 5 kilometers, Arkenhoek was so smart, so nice, so pretty, so beautiful, that you would even be afraid just to throw a piece of paper on the ground. But today, so filthy, piles and piles of uncollected refuse. And I just don't understand why it's like that. People, they just jump and walk and do whatever they do. No one cares about. As it is a problem of many of our cities in my country, South Africa.
Well, your point well made. And I, Sydney, I'm sorry, but yes, the truth is what you've said. There's the entire country, everybody's listening, and 90% are probably nodding to say, that's my town too. It's so sad. The good news for you, Sydney, you've got a whole city named after you, Sydney in Australia, right? Thanks for that call. Let's get to some of the other big issues. In fact, there's another comment on towns and cities.
My city, Port Shepstone, KZN South Coast. Disgusting.
My city is Joburg. Eish, man. Not a world-class African city any longer. That's a whole sentence, right? So not Ayoba. Is that the right words that I use? I think so. Just comment about the EFF.
Good afternoon, my very good sir. It's Mlungi Sidladla from eThekwini. Anyway, I just want to quickly comment regarding what occurred in Limpopo to the student command being expelled by the EFF Central Committee. It seems that the EFF is losing grip as the ANC exactly. It seems that the MKP party is taking over, and this student command should join the MKP party. He will be welcome. I thank you.
Okay, there we are. Canvassing has started. Here's another comment on towns and cities.
Trav, it's Nondu. I would describe my area, which is eMadlangeni under Newcastle, as a disaster. Thank you.
Goodness, man, I tell you what, everybody who comments about their towns. Is there any town in South Africa that is just working magic? Here's the last one I want to play just on Zuma, right? Because it's so topical, and then we'll move on to the guest.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and the production team. It makes me wonder, why would Jacob Zuma have to appeal the National Disciplinary Committee's decision of the ANC to expel him, knowing well that he didn't even campaign for ANC in the national general elections of 2024, but instead campaigned for MK Party, whom he is a co-founder of. This old man is confused, man. He should just go back home and look after his livestock. I thank you, Lotta Emonti.
Okay, I think we played that before, but okay, there you are, double the impact. Right, let's talk winning after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Talking about winning Friday, we have the fireside chat. Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi is my guest. Do not miss that. 5 to 6 o'clock, one guest, me, you, her. Fireside chat. Absolutely looking forward to it. Right, the feature winning is a feature where we look at people who are best in class, individuals, organizations, institutes, and we find out what they do, and we celebrate them, and we also learn from them. Let's get the thoughts now of today's winner in this feature. Someone who's winning certainly is Jeff Budlander, Senior Counsel. He is the recipient, the 4th George Bezos Human Rights recipient, and also founding member of the LRC, which is the Legal Resources Center. Jeff Budlander, Senior Counsel Jeff Budlander, thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I would think, just about any award that is linked to George Bezos is like, wow, I'll take it any time, isn't it?
Yeah, he was a very special person, very, very special person. So it's a great honor to be associated with him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well done to you, first of all, in being acknowledged this time round. How do you feel about it? I mean, you've been told about it in advance, I gather. It's like,
yes.
You think what?
Well, it's an honor. Of course, and I appreciate the honor. It's also, of course, refers to work which I didn't do on my own. I did it together with other lawyers at the Legal Resources Center or in private practice, and I did it together with the clients that I was representing. So it's never been a one-man show, and so I take it as a tribute, which I appreciate, to the work of lots of people in advancing human rights.
It's interesting you say that, because I just had a comment on a family group of ours that I'm part of, and they complimented some of us, and I said, hold it, it's not one or two people, it's a team, and I said some of them are batsmen, others are bowlers, others are wicket keepers, but collectively we make a good team, and clearly that would apply in your case, right? Having said that, in terms of you being given this award or citation, I mean, what did they say about you? Because I mean, I think the why around the award is very important. What did they say?
Yes, well, they referred to my work in co-founding the Legal Resources Center with Arthur Chaskelson and Felicia Kentridge. They referred to the work the LRC did in cases like death penalty, on the treatment action campaign, and post-constitution on a host of things. And they said this was all important human rights work, bringing the Constitution to life for ordinary people, which of course is at the heart of making the Constitution a success. So it was very nice.
And of course, talking about your unwavering commitment to social justice, I mean, you would like that, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, I have been doing it for about 50 years, so it's very nice.
I must tell you, on a personal level, when we moved into white areas at the time when we still had apartheid South Africa, black people started infiltrating white suburbs. The organization that was top of the list of people that ACTSTOP suggested we must use if you're in trouble is the Legal Resources Center, and I've never forgotten that. Clearly, you were there from day one.
Yeah, that's right. We worked very closely with ACTSTOP, with Casco Vadio, who was the main activist behind ACTSTOP, and with many other organizations and people, lawyers in Joburg. And together, a joint effort, by all of these people and the clients brought prosecutions to a halt, group areas prosecutions to a halt. The courts couldn't cope with a situation where everybody was having effective representation. Proper defences were being raised. Proper defences were being raised in mitigation. And in the end, they couldn't cope with it, and they abandoned what had been a huge number of prosecutions to try to stop the deracializing of Hillbrow, Berea, and areas like that.
Now, I certainly remember that a long, long time ago. I mean, tell me about it. So besides, your own career as a legal practitioner, in terms of giving back, the Legal Resources Centre is very important. Tell me more about how important that has been, the LRC, and you and your team, and the impact it's made, besides the ACTSTOP or residence issues that we just touched on now.
Yes, well, it was the first organisation in South Africa to hire full-time lawyers on a professional basis to provide full-time services for free to those who couldn't afford it. Others have done the same and have done very well, but it was a pathbreaker in the idea of full-time professional public interest law, whereas previously the human rights cases were taken by individuals, practitioners in private practice, and usually they had to be paid. But we raised money to pay the lawyers, to pay the staff, and so we didn't have to charge any fees to anybody. And what happened was there became a large network of organizations which were there to support people who are marginalized, people who are deprived, and people who are oppressed in various ways. Most of this work has in fact been done around issues like land and housing and education and health services. And that, of course, is where we still have the greatest need. Pass laws. The pass laws were a big part of what we did, what we attacked, and the pass laws were abolished in 1986. So it was apartheid laws then, and it was people's basic needs then, and it's still basic needs now.
And therefore, outside of what we've just spoken about, when you reflect yourself on your own journey, what for you has been, your singular greatest achievement in the legal spaces?
Well, I suppose the two cases which give me most satisfaction were the Treatment Action Campaign case, which literally saved the lives of hundreds of thousands of children when the government was required to provide treatment to prevent mother-to-child transmission of AIDS and or HIV. And then also a case in KwaNdebele involving a group of women who were excluded. Women were excluded from the KwaNdebele political process. There was a civil war going on in KwaNdebele between the bureaucrats, the KwaNdebele bureaucrats, the apartheid Bantustan government, and ordinary people. And 3 women brought a case to challenge the validity of the election of the KwaNdebele Legislative Assembly. The court declared it unlawful, and the whole move to KwaNdebele independence came to an end. 3 remarkable, very brave women.
Well, that's fantastic, and I certainly remember the work you've done in both cases. Absolutely. Just as we wrap up, right? I mean, one of the things this feature we call winning. So we talk about people in the present tense. They're winning at what they do, right? What advice would you give others in terms of, them wanting to follow a winning path?
Well, I think the people who are lucky are the people like me who have been able to take on a professional life doing something they really care about and that is really fulfilling. I think the people who are luckiest and who are likely to succeed are those who can take on something which is important to them and make that their lives, to have a life with a purpose, in other words.
What is your purpose?
My purpose, human rights, serving the Constitution, seeing that all people achieve their basic needs and their basic rights.
And then you're living that purpose, absolutely. Jeff Budlander, great chatting to you. Thanks for your time and well done on being the recipient of the 4th George Bezos Human Rights Awards, and particularly for the work around, besides other things, around the Legal Resources Centre. Fascinating indeed. Appreciate your time and keep on winning.
Thank you very much.
There we are. That's the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, remember. Keep on winning from 10 to 6. Now, in fact, we won't do that tomorrow because tomorrow we have Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi coming from 5 to 6. But the first 2 hours are all the things that we do every single day, keeping an eye on, keeping fingers on the pulse so we ensure that we do not miss anything and reflecting the national pulse. Thanks for listening. Goodbye, good evening, good night. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg Host with the news.
Thank you again, Ashraf. A call on courts to be vigilant in sensitive cases, and Liebenberg claims he was violated in prison. Good evening. The Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, has called for the courts to be vigilant when handling sensitive cases involving minors and vulnerable victims. This follows the release of a suspect accused of sexually violating a young boy. The suspect was initially arrested in January and then released on bail. While out on bail, he allegedly